Oh, and Brian, we are being televised too.
The whole meeting?
Yeah, it's part of, I think it's in your notes where you read the,
Thanks for the
I
warning.
haven't even seen makeup yet.
Gotta see hair.
So do we have a survey for 26 Glen Ave?
Which one? No, just the map is all I saw. Yeah, and then the lots, you know what I mean? So I did not see a survey.
school
I
committee.
remember I looked at it. I did not get a chance to see it.
Seeing that it is 7 o'clock, we will open the meeting.
How quickly did it end?
We're going to take care of a little housekeeping first. We have a plan here. I don't know if anyone has got to see it. Nancy, have you had a chance to look at this? 11th Ave and Gloria Ave. They have an as-built that is a foot different than we approved. The building inspector is recommending that we accept the changes as shown, the modified plan. It's a foot further back from the roadway than the original plan was. Charlie, did you get a chance to see this?
Nope, never heard of it.
We approved a plan that the as-built is a foot further away from the street than shown.
Oh, yeah,
I guess I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the modification as shown on the as-built plan.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? We have a Russian
I'm
Charlie
not
here.
familiar with this at all, so I should just abstain.
Yeah.
At this point, Joe, you won't be voting on this because you didn't sit for it, but
Right.
we have 5 to vote.
Okay.
You're welcome to look at it and absorb it.
How long ago was that?
That was, I think,
What's the
September?
date on the
Summer,
stamp?
I'd say.
It was 2 months ago,
Yeah,
September?
I was gonna say, it wasn't that long.
but it's already done. And now
The
it's-
foundation is in.
It's quick. You know, that contractor.
But it wasn't me.
on time and in
Is there-
budget.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, we're voting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5, unanimous?
Good luck with it.
Drawings back, or?
I'll take it back.
Do we have a copy of the as-built
Yeah.
on the file?
Yeah, they've been scanned into the town zone.
Jerry, can you hand me those 2 plans, please?
Our next hearing is 95 Drum Hill Road. We are not going to open that application tonight.
Brian.
There is some confusion in the wording, and it needs to be re-advertised. If anyone is here for 95 Drum Hill Road, that will be postponed till January 4th.
Right.
You just need to point out that it's being televised.
This is being televised tonight, so smile a lot and be nice. We're going to look at 26 Glen Ave, Lot 12, Lot 11, for a variance under 195-9A, conformity to keep existing non-conforming dwelling now made more non-conforming, lot area and frontage at Lot 12, and create a new non-conforming lot for future dwelling that will not meet the requirements for the lot and lot frontage on Lot 11. Good evening.
Is there a plan for this?
The only one I found here was this drawing, so I didn't see that in the application on the, I think we can look up there and try to follow along.
Good evening, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Doug Hausler from Lampert, Hausler and Rodman, representing the applicant, which is Roland Mainville, the manager of Ram Glen Avenue LLC.
That's all I got.
I've provided a package, I think it was scanned and sent to you, a submittal with exhibits A through F, plus the cover letter with the legal reasoning why this request for variances should be allowed. I'll walk through it very, very quickly because I know you have a busy agenda. The 2 lots that are being discussed tonight, actually, they are 2 lots. Let's start with the premise that the subdivision plan of record shows both lots as separate lots, lots 11 and lot 12. Those are based on a subdivision plan. It was shown as Exhibit A to the submittal I gave to you, and if you take a look at this Exhibit A, and you see the layout of the subdivision plan as it's shown on the diagram, you see that these lots were 100% consistent with the entire neighborhood. They were all 10,000 square foot lots. The subdivision plan was well before the adoption of the zoning bylaw in Chelmsford, but most of the neighborhood was developed consistent with that 10,000 square foot lot area, as I'll show you in a minute. And I also want to point two things out while this diagram is up. This also shows not only that lots 11 and 12 has since subsequently been purchased by the current owner. So what the issue is how do we meet the three criteria? One of the first things I wanted to show to you is the uniqueness of this situation. And that is the lots are essentially the lots that are involved here that would be double sized. If you treat it only as one lot for zoning purposes, it's twice the size of more than 75% of that entire neighborhood. Number two, what's also unique about that is that the two lots that are shown now, technically one for zoning purposes, each has frontage of 100 feet on Glen Avenue. The other lots that are now of record, and you'll see that in other subdivision plans, including the one that was part of the Board of Appeals plan, there are two lots behind these subject locuses that are also probably 20,000 square foot lots, pretty close to. But the difference is that they don't have the frontage. They only have the 100 feet of frontage. So the lots we're talking about tonight are unique. There's no question that it satisfies that criteria.
It's upside down.
The other issue I wanted to talk to you about is the hardship. The hardship arises with respect to not being able to use more than half of the property under the zoning bylaw. You'll see that the existing house was and remains a non-conforming structure on that lot. It was built apparently back in the 1940s, before the adoption of zoning. So that lot, we're not intending to do anything to that structure. It's going to stay as is. Our proposal is to take the land to the, I'll say, I guess it would be west, where the number 53 appears on that highlighted area. And about in that location, we can locate a potential another house. That house on the new lot would be 100% consistent with side yard setbacks, front yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks. So we're not going to be imposing on the privacy of any individual abutters. It would otherwise meet the zoning bylaw for an RB district. This is an RB district. It's remarkable that it's an RB district, given that I don't think there's any lots that are actually 1 acres in the entire area, except across the street in the commercial part of the neighborhood. Lots 11 and 12 also were derived from entirely separate titles. Lot 11 was a title that goes back to, I believe it was and I think I showed it as a part of Exhibit E to my submittal. The deeds show going back to 1940. I think it's either Crocker or Cooker. I'm not 100% sure. I should take a look. Crooker, C-R-O-O-K-E-R, in 1947 sold the lot to the Burr family. But that was one chain of title. And then the subsequent Lot 12 chain of title is derived as set forth in Exhibit D. And I went back on the history on that lot. And that lot also goes back to a 1946 conveyance chain of title that shows that these were intended to be separate buildable lots at the time that they were created. And it's just that they never got done. And now, because of zoning bylaw changes, that we need your permission. And when the deed was conveyed into Mr. Mainville's LLC, you'll see specifically it's listed as Parcel 1 and Parcel 2, and it specifically shows the chains of title and the fact that they're each about 10,000 square feet. The use obviously is entirely consistent. It's going to be a proposed residential single-family use. Yes, these lots are non-conforming. Quite frankly, every lot, as you can see, every lot on that plan is non-conforming. None of them are 40,000 square feet. None of them have 150 feet of frontage. A lot of them don't meet the rear yard or front yard setbacks or side yard setbacks. So the proposed, what we're saying is the non-conforming structure stays as is, no further harm, and the new proposed lot will be 100% compliant with all those kind of setbacks. So that's why we're gonna be short on frontage. As to the zoning district, yes. As to the neighborhood, we're 100% consistent. So I don't think it's a big stretch for you on a variance in this request. I also don't think it's gonna be any form of precedent setting because they are two chains of title. They are unique circumstances that are factually distinct to this particular application with that kind of frontage and that kind of history of the subdivision in that kind of a neighborhood. So we have I think we described the uniqueness of the situation. I think we have the hardship that is, it was intended to be a single-family lot at the time it was created. It was treated that way for a number of years dating back to 1940. And all we're doing is seeing the logical conclusion of allowing a house to be built on that. In terms of, is there a substantial derogation from the intent of the bylaw? I would submit to you respectfully that it can't be. The use is consistent. It's entirely consistent with the neighborhood. It's not consistent with the bylaw because the bylaw, quite frankly, it shouldn't be an RB district. It's that simple. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and to answer any questions that the public may have through you.
I definitely have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can you point me to which of the exhibits is Exhibit C, that is the stamped plan that shows, it's called the ZBA plan, but I'm having trouble finding it.
This one here.
This is it.
It's right up here.
That's it, so, but it's not here.
Oh, it's probably because it was too
It was-
large.
Okay,
May I hand it?
Yeah.
because
Was
I'm
it
trying to
This is the
find it.
zoning board of appeals plan.
Okay,
Paper version.
yeah, because I'm gonna get a look at this too, it's kind of an
Can I
important,
get that?
perfect.
So that's
We- we can-
this same thing?
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I have a question. The owners, I assume, are the people that want to build a house, the current owners?
Yes, Mr. Mainville is a builder in town, has done other projects in town. He
Just-
now owns both lots 11 and 12. 11 would be here, 12 is here, excuse me.
It's right here.
So these two lots.
So, the people living in that house now, are the people living in that house, they're not the owners, they're renters?
I believe that's correct.
And
I'm
he,
not 100% sure that's right.
okay, and so he bought both lots, they were separate lots?
They were chains of title, they were separate lots, yes. He acquired both of them from members of the Burr, B-I-R family, who purchased one lot at one period of time, purchased the other lot in 1990, and had all this extra land. So the Burr family owned both lots
Right.
in 1990, and now have subsequently sold it to Ram Glen Avenue LLC in August of 2017.
But he knew that it didn't fit the bylaws to build on it when he bought
Oh,
it?
no, of course, yes, he would have that knowledge. Anybody would have that knowledge, that
Okay.
it's not technically compliant with the RB district. Absolutely true.
But he has no, he doesn't have an interest, he's not interested in living there, he's just interested in building and selling it.
Honestly, I don't know. He tends to build and sell, but I don't, he already lives in town, I believe in the Westlands. But I don't know what his intention is to either move himself in or a family member or just to offer for sale. Another point I'd like to raise about this particular neighborhood, something similar to this, I think, came before the board on another application on one of the lots across the street or nearby. And I guess variances were not allowed, and that subsequently became a 40B. Personally, I don't think we ever want to go down that route, because that would be the only logical choice for some type of other way of developing it. I don't think that's the appropriate way. I think the appropriate way is come to before this board, hear out any potential issues by neighbors and other people, address what those issues are, and ask for the required variances.
So the lots became conjoined in
Conjoined in 1990.
And then was sold as a conjoined lot, not a single lot.
That's true. One deed with two separate descriptions showing the two separate chains of title. I'll call it the Burr family owned it.
Sure how much freedom we have creating a non-conforming lot from it. Well, it's not a conforming lot.
With all due respect, Brian, none of them are conforming in that whole entire neighborhood. Because the subdivision plan of record of 1947, I think, showed them as 10,000 square foot lots. That was the original intent of that entire neighborhood. So,
Doug, I think it might be helpful if you explained sort of how they merged for zoning purposes under the merger doctrine when they came into common ownership.
I'm happy to let council even do it, because they'll believe you more than they'll believe me, if you wish to
So
amplify that for the board.
when these were held in separate ownership, at the time that zoning changed, there were two separate buildable lots. And they stayed separate buildable lots as long as the two lots were not held in common ownership. Once they were brought into common ownership, after the zoning had changed, now they merged for zoning purposes. So it's because they bought the lot next door that these two lots are actually considered now a single lot for zoning purposes and would require a variance to be constructed. If that lot was purchased by anybody else that didn't own property abutting it, it would still be a buildable.
Or even my husband and wife separately, it would be,
That gets to an issue of control.
let's go.
Yes, that's exactly why I wanted you to answer it, Paul, not me. And Brian, to answer.
And I haven't looked at the chain of title and made any determinations with regard. I just wanted to sort of explain, how it winds up that these two lots are technically separate lots, but for zoning purposes are considered a single lot, and it's because they
I
came
think we had
into
the
common
same
ownership.
dilemma on Kenwood and the same,
It's not uncommon.
One of the lots, I believe it's lot 11?
that has the house on it now, I
No,
believe.
12 has the house on it now.
Okay.
12 has the house on it now. Lot 11, I think, was held in separate ownership, and if someone had come in 1988 or 89, they would have been able to get the permit like that without having to come before the board. So what I think it is, a family here's my view, the family that acquired the lots made a mistake by taking title in their same name. It's no more, no less complicated than that. If I had bought that lot for them as a trustee, I'd be able to come in before the building inspector and just say, may I please have a building permit, pay the fee, and I'd get it. Because it's a subdivision plan of record. As long as I also met all the other requirements, I believe, setbacks and such. But I would be okay on grandfathered status for frontage and for area, which is what we're looking for relief from.
And you can tell me, what is the area of that house, or what is the dimensional of the envelope that you have?
Matt can describe that probably better than I can. I always let the engineers do the math.
Like when they put it on there.
It's a modest home, Brian. It's not one of these,
I just think for
4 or
clarity,
5
yeah,
bedroom
what
homes.
what the envelope is. I realize you have your setbacks in each direction.
I'll let,
So if this was granted, does that become technically one lot?
65,
Comes an isolated lot of its own.
45.
No, the whole thing, the 11 and 12, it doesn't become one lot if we grant
So
the area?
it's currently two
35.
lots
Right.
for title purposes.
Right.
It is considered a single lot for zoning purposes.
So it's
If a variance is granted, it would be
35
separated
by
again for
35,
zoning
yes.
purposes and would be a separate lot.
The number 11 would be a
This
separate
one's
lot.
25, 40.
Gotcha.
Is
And
that the,
That's the nature of the request.
is that the only way it can be separated? Can it be sold as a,
That's-
it can't go back now that it's come, okay.
now, lot 11,
From where inside?
where the new house would be, according to the engineer, it can support a 34 by 34
Okay.
foot plan, which is about 900 plus square feet.
It comes out to
So you're looking at a very modest home consistent with that neighborhood, not a 3,500 square foot home that's gonna not fit in the neighborhood whatsoever.
Assuming
That's
we go to
one
a
story. Is
two-story,
it
it would
two
be
stories?
1,800, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's footprint.
2 stories.
It's 1,100?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I
the prop-
apologize. 34 by 34 is 1,100.
Like the assessor's car is right up, it says
Oh,
986 for living area.
For the existing?
Right.
All right, and this is, the house that'll be built next to it is gonna be a little bit larger, but not substantially.
Well, can I do some procedural stuff?
Sure of it.
Absolutely.
I was on the planning board when across the street came in. It's the first house on the right on B, I believe.
On B, okay.
And that came into planning board and they wanted to split it. So planning board finally voted to not allow it because it didn't meet, it meets no zoning. So that's what happened. They went out and did a 40B.
I know.
Okay, but then I went by there today and I looked at the two-family house across the street. And I didn't think that was all that bad. And the good part of that, we get one affordable unit extra in town.
Mhm.
So I guess there's two ways you can go on this.
I was trying to go with a more conventional, non-confrontational
No, that's
approach.
kind of like a threat, I thought.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's not what I'd say. I just tried to relate that that there was something in that neighborhood that went through that approach. I don't agree with that, and that's why we're going here on the typical approach. Charlie, if I'm gonna threaten something, you know me by now, I say it right out, and I say, if you don't, therefore I will. I'm not doing that with this board, I'm asking for permission. Because I think it's warranted.
Oh, I get your point.
Were there any-
So I may have missed it. Do you actually state someplace what the square footage, height, and everything for the dwellings?
we'd have to be consistent with all the other restrictions of the height, setbacks, et cetera, of the RB district. So I think we're
Yeah.
limited to 35 feet, I believe, in the RB district, and we are subject to the rear yard and side yard setbacks. In fact, we even meet the front yard setback. So,
Corner? Yeah.
because, we're very consistent with the RB district. And the use is consistent.
The variances for frontage and what else?
Area.
Area.
Because the district and the RB is 40,000 square feet. For the life of me, I don't understand why our map has it, but
Any other questions for the board at this time?
Are there people that want to speak from the
From the
neighborhood?
board, sir. I'm going to read the letters, and look at that, and then we'll have some audience participation. I have a letter from Stephen
Yonley.
Stephen Yonley, regarding 20 Glen Ave variance request. Dear board members, this office has reviewed the submitted application for a new lot at Glen Ave. Based upon our review and relief being granted, we have the following comment. The new lot will require a sewer connection. The connection will be gravity connection and is subject to all required permits and applicable fees. Stephen Yonley. I have another letter from the fire department. Dear Colleen, please forward the following to the Zoning Board of Appeals in regards to the 12/7/17 agenda. Dear members of the board, please be advised that the Fire Prevention Office has no concerns with the proposal before the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the subdivision of lots at 26 Glen Ave. Any new lot must have an address as determined by the Town of Chelmsford 911 Committee. The applicant shall make the application to the 911 Committee and its chairperson, Town Clerk Tricia Druez, to obtain addresses for the two newly created lots. This office would approve of this measure with this requirement, and I ask the board to make this letter part of their approval process. Respectfully, Captain Dan.
and the applicant would be 100% behind both of those letters. No objection.
And those are the only letters. I'm going to open this up to anyone who have made concerns for or against this project to speak. Please approach the podium.
Hi,
Hello. You can have your name and address, please.
Sarah Salvi.
David Salvi,
We are at 20 Glen Ave,
right
which
next
is
door.
right next door to this property here. Can we get a better description of what the hardship is here?
Defer to Mr. Hausler.
I would, because it goes to the board, I didn't want to just presume, Brian, I'm sorry. The hardship is that the entire lot, 10,000 square feet, which would otherwise have been buildable, is entirely rendered economically useless, and that's a complete hardship. So this lot, in 1989, someone could have built a home there, and that would have been a problem. And if I understand correctly further, just for point of clarification, I understand, this is you folks here?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding is this structure actually is an encroachment because this structure is this is not, your parcel is here, you don't own this. So the owner, my client, currently owns to the midpoint of this, as do you. So technically, you're encroaching on his property right
Okay, it's
now.
just a shed, it can be moved.
No, and I understand, I'm just saying, I don't see a need to move it, number one, I wouldn't suggest that
Okay,
you
but-
need it. I'm just saying it's part of a neighborhood where you try to work with each other and give each other a little opportunity, that's all.
And this is not about our property at this point. I think this is about the other property, but I don't think that hardship would be defined as personal economic gain, which is what's going to happen here essentially. They're gonna build another house and sell it off for personal gain. The house that's on there already is under a rent-to-own agreement, so it's already
Sold,
rented and
it's already sold,
technically
basically, it has a
sold.
P&S on it.
So everything that's gonna happen with this other lot is just to sell it off and make money off of it, which
And at
is
the-
not a hardship.
At the end of the day, it'll be 2 non-conforming lots instead of 1.
And the other question is, there was a lot of talk about it was buildable until 1990 when it was conjoined. Why did no one build then for all of those years that they could have built? Nobody built. I'm just curious as to why nobody would have built on
I
that.
certainly don't have the answer to that.
Well,
Right.
yeah, the current property was built in 1946, that's 71 years, and it's never been brought to your guys' attention until today. So,
Yeah, it is curious.
Oh, any other issues?
just wanna make sure we said everything we had to say. I mean, as you can see, it's right next to our property too. I mean, oh, also, traffic, it'll increase traffic on the road. There's already businesses there with 18-wheelers, cars coming up and down because of the condos down on the right, which is, you know, it is what it is, but this will actually add more to that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, I understand your position on it, clearly.
Thank you.
My name is Alex Berry, Alexander Berry. I'm on 12 B Street. Now, I would like to know what is 200 feet from the brook to where this building or this place is going to be situated. What part of that property is going to eat up a part of that 200 feet from the brook to the house or that's going to be built?
Would the engineer be able to give us an idea of how far from the brook?
Colleen just did.
That's very helpful.
This
And
blue here is the.
This is for
200
conservation
This right here is the 200 foot.
200 foot.
How much of that property is going to be
Riverfront.
eaten up?
The thing, Brian, that Katie brought up was that it's not that it couldn't be done, because there's structures in between. It would definitely be more on the side. But they could possibly get conservation approval. She did take a peek at this.
So it's in the outer 200-foot riverfront area?
200-foot riverfront, with this being in the 50-foot.
But it's,
Alrighty.
so it's
My
outside
next
the
question.
100 feet.
Right, which is much more possible.
My next question is this going to be a 2-room downstairs and a 2-room upstairs? Or it's going to eat up the rest of
It has more room than that. You could put a substantial house there in a 34 by 34.
even after the measurement come from the brook to the
Conservation is a completely separate process. They will certainly have to go to conservation. Their reasoning is to come here is their own. They want to come here first. If they can get it divided into a lot, then they would go to conservation and challenge that, not challenge it, but try to way to
Get it reviewed, yeah.
get it to work. If this were approved as it sits, there's an envelope that's in the middle of the lot where that would be required to stay. If they want to move it over, as you said, to the right-hand area, they could only do it in the envelope area. They can't exceed that and come closer to the neighbor without reappearing before us.
Okay, now my next question. What about the paper road, A Street? Are they gonna acquire some part of A Street?
So I don't believe they can. It's certainly not there. You can't buy a paper road, to my knowledge. The town may deed it.
No, I didn't say buy, I say acquire it. Well, acquire mean buy it. But they're gonna use a part of that or, and where that start and finish?
Honestly, they legally shouldn't. Their neighbor has a shed that's on that space. It's common that people sort of say, it's never gonna be built, we're not gonna use it, we'll put our shed there, or that sort of thing. But technically, it's a paper road that is not your property. I wouldn't even say shouldn't, but,
There's some risk, yeah.
you don't have permission to put any structure or any unit on it, certainly no paving.
So are they gonna park on the street, or they gonna have some place to park their cars? I'm quite sure it'll be more than one person
I
with
would
a car.
assume there would be, a parking would be a requirement there. I don't know, it's not shown in the plan, but I would assume there would be a driveway to the home.
It's gonna be
I don't-
impacted by.
Well, I mean, if it's not on the plan, then,
Yeah, and conservation will have
yeah, but
say in that as well.
if it's not on the plan, then, I mean, there'll be like a sneak, right?
You can pave any part of your property without a permit. It's not a
As long as
requirement
it gets
on a
past
plan.
conservation.
Right, in order to pave anything, they're gonna need an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission.
Right,
On this lot.
On this lot.
which means it may not be allowed paving. They may need pavers or.
They may require a stone area as opposed to not have the impervious surface. Conservation isn't, they've got their own thing going.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just curious about
Oh, I
that,
appreciate your
because, I
question.
mean,
I
I'd
can
like
you
to
they
know
will be going
if
to
you
the
thought about
conservation
that.
commitment. They will
You
be
know,
going.
I'd just like to know
Well,
if you thought
we know
about it.
that it'll get addressed
Yeah,
at conservation.
yeah, that's the different,
And I think what
yes.
they're trying to determine
Yes.
is whether or not, based on what they've given us here, if this looks acceptable.
Oh, I see, okay,
And then
good.
it has to proceed.
If you have some information to add, sir, that'll be fine.
Let me help you answer your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, the property is in the,
Your name and address.
my name's Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying up in Lowell.
Thank you.
The property is within the 200-foot riparian. As you may or may not know, they, in order to develop in the 200-foot riparian, you're only allowed to go 5,000 square feet or 10% of the total area of that land in the riparian. So we would only be able to develop 5,000 square feet of that property if it was entirely in the riparian. Secondly, we're not gonna be doing anything to the paper street. The paper streets are there in order to build roads if somebody wants to create lots down the paper street. But by developing this property as a single family coming off of Glen Ave, we would not be doing any work in the paper street, because that has to be left alone to build a road in sometime in the future.
Yeah. Now,
So-
who to say that in the future?
Paper
that
streets are
something-
there, so in the future, they can have roads built.
No, I'm talking about that particular house, want to use a part of that because it's a paper street.
It's not on the plan.
You could condition this permit for us to not use any part of the paper street for developing the house. We would not be
Really
using,
not something we're gonna concern
Yeah,
ourselves with.
It's not in
Right.
front of us.
The land is there by right, they do not own it, they do not have a right to use it,
Right.
but we're not gonna enforce the,
Brian, I'm not quite sure that's correct. The paper street, they abut it, they may, via the derelict fee statute, actually own up to the center line of the paper street,
so they would have rights to the center line of that.
potentially. I mean, you would have to do a review of the title and.
Right, but it's fair to say that that's not in front of us right now, right?
Correct.
Right, and as long as we don't overburden that paper street, our portion of that, up to the midpoint, that would be another issue, but right now, the intention is not to really have that affect the overall development of that particular lot.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening regarding this matter? And I'm just gonna try to look up a definition of a variance for a minute, so I understand this.
It is right here.
Printouts were so much better. 6, 8. I guess I'm trying to understand,
What are you looking for? Are you looking for the definition, the provisions for variances in the bylaw?
as well as the hardship definition.
Well, you're not gonna find it in the
That's at
definition
MGLs.
section. Yeah, so if, variances, chapter 48, section 10. So it says, permit granting authority shall have the power after public hearing, for which notice has been given by publication and posting as provided in section 11 and mailing to all parties in interest, to grant upon appeal or petition with respect to particular land or structures a variance from the terms of the applicable zoning ordinance or bylaw, where such permit granting authority specifically finds that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such ordinance or bylaw. So that's
Thank
your
you.
standard.
And my question was simply, and you had mentioned the economic advantage was one of the reasons that specifically allows that to be a hardship. So that's a consideration there that I thought was actually in the other direction.
And for the boards, I did include exactly that quote almost verbatim in the submittal I gave you. There are at least 3 cases on point that talk about a hardship is not being able to reasonably use property for the purposes or the manner allowed by the municipal zoning requirements. And substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, is found only where the unique circumstances, it is not economically feasible or likely that the locus would be developed in the future for use permitted by the zoning ordinance or bylaw. As for hardship, when mere dimensional variances are involved as here, even a relatively minor hardship can justify a variance. That's the Joseph versus Board of Appeals of Brookline case, going back to 1972. That's a 40-plus year precedent that's been repeatedly affirmed. It's still good law.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, were you saying that would constitute a financial hardship was economic gain?
That's what I was trying to clarify. Does a hardship allow you to use the financial burden? I believe in this case there is a financial burden. I think that, I just wanted to understand that a hardship is allowed to rely on the financial burden. It doesn't really have a topography issue or land area. The dimensional requirements are met, so it becomes, in other words, in 1991, you could have built this, now you can't, and that's what they're asking for relief for.
How is it a burden, a financial burden? Because they've already sold the property, technically the rent-to-own agreement, so there's no financial burden for them. I don't
Well,
believe.
I think they own a piece of property that they are looking for relief on. And the idea for us to consider, they're saying it's a financial problem, because if we could sell this, we could profit, were it not for the purchase that created the conjoinment in 91, they would have two separate lots.
But you did ask earlier if they knew that fact before they purchased the land, and they did.
Or the buyers here knew.
Right.
But it
So they
doesn't,
knew
I
there
mean,
was-
they knew the land was conjoined, that's your point.
Right.
I think they did. I think they saw an opportunity to take a chance with the Board of Appeals. This is not gonna be a simple route for them, I think, with conservation either. It's a bit of a challenge.
There are also a lot of examples where a landowner's desire to maximize profits from his land does not qualify as a substantial hardship. Perez versus Board of Appeals of Norwood, Hoffman versus Cambridge Zoning Board of Appeals. There are several examples of this. And I think, unless I'm misunderstanding you, that's where you were trying to say that they were having.
I think, Brian, the
gonna defer to
disconnect
Mr.
here
Hammond.
is that there's two aspects to this analysis. First, you need to determine whether or not there is a hardship, and economic hardship is a hardship that qualifies under the standards for variance. But then you have to determine whether or not that hardship relates to the unusual lot shape, soil conditions, or topography. So that's
It has to relate to one of those three?
correct.
So lot shape would be the only one really on the table, given the size of the lot in comparison to the neighborhood. Whether it's suitable for hardship, I guess is the question we'll have to determine.
So it's the same shape as the other two lots right next to it.
That and quite a few
Similar shape to
more.
almost every lot there.
I mean, certainly not derogating from the neighborhood's flavor by, it's probably one of the bigger lots in that neighborhood. I know it's not lot 11 on that, but the 21811 there and 218-9, which I believe is that gentleman's home, all have the oversized lots.
And they'll look like one of the, like there's more smaller lots than larger lots at this point.
I
Apparently.
believe so, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like there's 9 10,000 square foot lots, and obviously those odd ones down there don't lend themselves to an easy lot size. Okay. I think if there's not further input, we'll close this to the public and
I just wanted to
take it
point
up this
out-
evening.
I just want to point one thing out. There was a similar variance request in 1990. I believe it was where your mouse is right there, yeah. I think it was for that, and that did end up getting a Section 8 house, which obviously didn't need a variance because it was Section 8.
Yeah, I think the 40B, is that what you're referring to?
Is that lot right there where the
Yeah.
mouse is? That one? The findings of the board, they determined that there was no hardship existing on the property, which, I mean, is a similar property. It has street access. I don't know how big it is. Do you know how big it is, those two lots?
.23,
About 10,000.
and then it was separated from this one.
So maybe they are similar in size?
Yeah,
0.23.
0.23.
So the board determined that there's no hardship on the property. The applicant failed to prove that the board that there's a hardship exists. I mean, the board also believed the lot to be too small, as the lot should not be split in half, making two small illegal lots, which would happen here. And it does not warrant the building of a house on this lot. The existing dwelling has been there for 45 years. This was 1990. This one's been here for 71 years. And until this time, a split of the lot was not considered. That was the board's decision in 1990. and they denied it 5-0. Thank you.
There was some reference to 1-3B Street tonight.
Your name, sir?
Oh, I'm very sorry, Mr. Chairman. William Harvey. I reside at 71 North Road in Chelmsford. And I just wanted to speak, just because the property
I think
referenced
you helped
tonight.
develop that property, is that correct?
It was 1-3B Street. I own that property. The land size was 10,000 square feet. From the history that I know, is the neighbor next door previously asked for it to be subdivided, which it wasn't. It was denied at that time. I purchased the property, and currently, right now, it's a
Just for clarification, can you tell me which lot you developed prior, with the 40B? That, is it the first one in the corner? That was,
Yes.
that's the new lot?
That's new lot.
Okay.
And so it's a new lot. Previously, the owners wanted to build a single-family dwelling. So technically, what you have now at the 10,000 square foot lot is, in my opinion, you get two dwellings even though they're attached. So it's a two-family now. I didn't receive any notification of this hearing. I don't have any position at this time. I was just an observer, and I just wanted to put my input in relative to any questions about B Street. So it's a 10,000 square foot lot. It's a large dwelling. You know, for purposes of it, it's more or less two dwellings that are allowed on the property. I did go out of my way to make sure it was a real nice house for the neighbors, and there was no complaints. So that's about it.
What is the square footage of that dwelling?
I think that's 30 by 50.
1,500.
It's hard to remember. It's a
That's a picture of it.
Brian, you'd have a better idea being a builder of the size. Oh, there's the footprint. Yeah, is that 50?
Yep.
28 by 50, so pretty close with the deck. 3 bedrooms per unit with bath and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, what's your name?
My name's William Harvey.
Did you need a variance to build that house?
No, that was done through a separate process, which Mr. Hausel could go through. It was called the 40B. Yep,
Thank you.
Did you have any comment on the case that they cited about the hardship?
I respectfully, no, I'm not gonna get
Okay.
into a legalistic approach here.
Okay.
I've laid out what I think are hardship reasons, and I'll let our submittal speak for itself.
Okay, we're gonna close the public hearing and take this up this evening? Is it,
Well, Brian, before we do that, do you want to go take a look at this or anything?
would you like to do that?
I've already looked at it.
Do you
You
feel
guys
it's
have
worth a
looked at
look?
Yeah, I do, I
Okay.
do.
I kind of wouldn't mind taking a peek at this too.
Oh, I guess we will leave the public hearing open for comment after and schedule a sidewalk for Christmas Day.
See you
Okay,
there.
let's look at that and then we can go look at it
I'll
then.
meet you what time.
We would have to meet again on the 4th of January. New Year's, Christmas.
Could meet on the 4th.
So to do that, it won't be
Yeah, I'll do
before,
it
I don't think
last
we'll, yeah, but it won't be, it'll be dark, I
Block that off, no, I'm sure
mean,
we'll
if it
still meet.
matters.
Gorham Street.
That'd be good to
We
see
can
it.
probably view everything from the roadway. Do you want to just, everyone go by and look at it before we do an actual sidewalk? We can just view it from the roadway?
That's what I typically do.
That sound like a plan? Go
Look
by
at
and
it
see it?
first, then
You've already
meet
seen
there.
it?
Yeah.
Go by on our own, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think getting everyone together is a bit challenging sometimes, and the
Sure.
holidays aren't going to make that any easier.
Got another
wanna just-
comment from the audience.
I know this isn't your problem, but we won't be here, and the 4th will be away for the holidays. If there's any way you can make it after that, that would be great.
We can continue it to a further date. I don't know if we have our schedule for 2018 yet.
Be February 1st will be the next date.
the applicant be amenable to February 1st?
No, I can't be, I don't have authority to do that, number one. Number two, the abutters have come, they presented their argument. Respectfully, I don't think there's any new information that's gonna come forth that warrants another whole month's delay. They've made their points, and you can consider them, just like us, but I don't think it's going to warrant a whole.
I can understand there probably wouldn't be more new information
That's my point.
forthcoming.
It's just for the board. I understand the board wanting to want to look at it. I understand that. But I don't see any other new information that's going to come out. So that's why I don't have authority from the owner to do that. I don't want to be
Understand.
disrespectful.
I do understand your position. I think the whole board has heard you speak, unless you think there's more information that you would bring.
There could be. You never know.
Yeah, well, if it's that important, maybe the 4th will be okay. I have to appreciate the timeline there.
You could do it by
You can submit email.
You could do it by
Yeah, you'd
letter.
be filled
You
to
could do it
put a
by
letter
letter,
in. If
too.
something does occur that you'd like to say, we'll read any letter you write for the 4th.
But without due respect, I believe that I presented a very clear, denial for this. I don't think looking at it should make a difference. And I'd like to be here if it is granted, so that I can know right away.
Well, this is a headache. Any thoughts on what we should do about this?
I think, like you said, we should continue it till January 4th meeting.
I agree.
And if you do have further input, feel free to put it in writing and submit it by email even. I think we're all gonna go take a look at it and try to understand the space better. I don't think anyone has made up their mind yet, so we'll, take it under advisement and meet on January 4th. If I can get a motion to continue this to January 4th.
Continue to January 4th on 26 Lynn Ave.
Is there,
Second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
is there anything specific you want to see marked out on the site walk?
I was just asking.
Yeah, that's, sorry.
You could stake the corners of the house. I think that would be
Just the
helpful.
envelope, yeah.
Yeah, the building
buildable.
box.
Yeah, the envelope.
Certainly.
We'll have that,
And maybe if you have a parking area in mind, might be helpful.
Christmas decorations.
we'll have,
Hot
we'll
cocoa.
have that building box done, the beginning of next week.
Okay,
Thank you very much for the time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Please, everybody, boy.
Realize they like-
You can't.
Mr. Chairman, let
Do
me
you
know
want
when
your
you're on
spare-
Gorham Street.
Drawing? Anyone? Any?
No, you can
I'll
put it
put it
back
in
in
the
the
file.
file.
Two. That's the one from the file.
Chairman, I'll be gone till the Gorham Street.
Okay, you're recruiting?
There's a little heart with all the trees and stuff.
Oh, no, I know, I did too.
Mark, I'm just gonna fold this up if you
Oh, sure. That's fine. Some reason for a placemat.
Got the gist.
We have a continued public hearing for 73 Dalton Road.
Good evening, members of the board. William Harvey on behalf of the Edward B. Bell Estates. It's an application that was before you. We had a hearing,
So he knows that.
I believe it was November 2nd. We pretty much went through the whole application process, the documents, the exhibits, and the only issue that was presented was for me to come back to the board and add more parking spaces. At the previous hearing, the plan showed 7 parking spaces with 9 required. The board asked me to come back and pick up 2 more parking spaces. I had an opportunity to speak with my engineer, Mr. Brian Melissi from Whitman and Bingham, and he proposed a new plan. That new plan shows 3 additional parking spaces, 1 more than you requested, which brings the parking in conformance. In fact, it exceeds conformance by 1 parking space. So we now have 9 spaces that are required for the site. We now have 10 spaces. So that was for your consideration. You asked for 2 spaces. I've was able to provide 3.
Thank
Their
you.
stamped plan.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, I was looking to, do we have a stamped plan of this?
Yes, that was, I spoke with my engineer last week. He said it was sent into the town.
Missing
Right here.
It might not have made it a digital form here, I'm just trying to understand that.
it. The original one.
It's not in the file?
It might be. It's definitely not
I
online.
can take a peek. It was submitted by his engineer, I'll tell you.
So we have received it.
Are the new parking spaces visible on that? Those are the,
Yeah, can we,
These 3 is what you requested right here.
oh, okay, so you did do them off to the side.
You think we have one? I'm not seeing one in the file.
He sent me this PDF, and I'm 99% sure I have the
Okay, I'm
stamped
just looking
version.
at this PDF and it doesn't have the parking.
Yeah, it does.
not what we, I don't see it on, well,
This, right here.
you
This
see
is,
that on yours?
this is right off the
The
agenda.
3 spaces.
Yeah.
Let me tell you where I'm at here. Maybe we're at a different page.
What sheet is that?
Isn't that?
Oh, it's the very first one
That's
that's
it.
extra large. Saying new plan.
Oh,
Or development plan?
I thought that was a header. Okay, so that explains a lot.
Oh, okay.
This just doesn't work.
Yeah, I skipped right over that.
Yeah, I thought it was the,
was
you know,
too
the
big.
header for it. Yeah, exactly.
I just didn't want to delete the rest of them that were older.
Is it stamped?
Not in the PDF.
No, the copy he sent me electronically was not, but I know he gave me,
We have a stamped plan on
Yeah.
file with the changes, okay. That's so weird. we can't-
I didn't notice that this one wasn't stamped.
It's received November 28th, 2017, but there is no stamp. Okay, Mark. Is that when you got it?
Yes.
I guess we're gonna ask you, Mr. Iver, for a stamped copy of that plan at some point.
That's no problem. From my discussions, I wanted to make sure that it was received in time for this board.
It says received on it
Yeah.
by the town, but there is no stamp on it. That's the only copy I could find.
My engineer told me that he did drop off a certain number of copies as well as sending the PDF format. But if for some reason it's not in the file, I'll make sure it's in the file tomorrow.
There's more, there's more.
Those are butters,
Those
don't.
are butters. This is the original application. I mean, that is the plan with the changes on it, so I'm
Yes.
not confident we're gonna find this. Copy the abutters. Yeah, that's not in this file. This is the only copy I have. It is stamped received November 28th, 2017. Does show the 3 additional parking spots for a total of 10, but there is no engineer stamp on this particular plan. So if we could ask you for another copy, or maybe Colleen can look and see if she has one.
That
In
will
her
not be a
file.
problem at all.
I'll actually see Brian. He'll get us.
I have read the letters.
There was one more from engineering.
We read engineering last time we were here.
Right, I remember her comments. I have a letter from the fire prevention, and I have a letter from Christine Papadopoulos.
Did we have fire last time?
Yes, no concerns.
What are they dated?
I am gonna read this in from Christine, just trying to understand the date as opposed to the received plan. On November 30th, the plan was received on the 28th of November, 2017. We received a letter from Christine Papadopoulos, subject 73 Dalton Road, LIP Housing Project. Dear board members, this office cannot perform a full review of the proposal for the above referenced project. A full set of engineered plans, including drainage calculations, stormwater management, and all supported documents must be submitted. To this date, no further information other than a single emailed PDF plan sheet showing the additional parking spaces dated August 1st, 2017, revised through November 17th, 2017, has been submitted for review. If the Zoning Board of Appeals wishes for the Engineering Division to comment on the application, a full application must be submitted. If you have questions, please contact this office. Sincerely, Christine Papadopoulos. So it seems they would like to see some plans stamped too.
I understand that, and we went over that last time when Evan Belansky pointed that out, that the engineering process, once again, there was a set of plans, and the process from what he said at the last hearing was that a full documentation with regards to the engineering didn't get filed with the application at that time.
Right.
It's a follow-up with the engineering, and of course, the plans, if approved, will be submitted to the town engineer. The town engineer will review them, and obviously we'll have to follow all the recommendations. I mean, as Mr. Belansky stated last time, they didn't require developers to provide full documentation, drainage, et cetera, for more or less this application hearing.
I have it different here.
Maybe you heard it different than
Yeah,
from me,
I
that's
wrote
fine.
it different at least.
That's fine.
That next meeting being this one, that all letters should be ready, 2 added parking spots, and the storm water management should be complete so that we can review here.
Okay.
That's how I had it written.
I recall Evan saying that you shouldn't spend time reading the drainage calculations.
No, not the calculations, but that it's been completed. You know,
That's
I
not
don't
what
think the
recall.
engineering on this side is extremely complex or costly. I'm not speaking for your engineer, of course.
I think that
It's actually, from the plans, and I talked to Brian about the previous meeting, and from my recollection, I went over the plans with him, it shows the drainage, et cetera, and then my understanding with Evan, when he spoke, was exactly what Ms. Stanfield said, is that the calculations necessarily don't have to be provided.
no, not to us.
Right, so that'll be a follow-up, but with regards to the drainage, the type of system that will be used there, that's all done, that's in the plans. I was confused because I didn't have the full set of plans, with regards to the drainage, and I went back to my office and looked at them, and that's when I called my engineer, and I couldn't understand the comments. So, the type of system with regards to the, the water flow from the drainage is all in the plans. So with regards to the in-depth calculations, that wasn't provided. It will be provided, obviously, to engineering. It'll be part of, obviously, the building permit.
So the engineering is done, it just needs to be taken to the town, and then we can have Christine's opinions on it.
I would assume so.
Excellent, excellent. So that's something we can just let go then. I mean,
So the concept, I apologize, I wasn't here for that portion of the hearing last time. So the concept is that the board's going to move forward on still sort of more preliminary stormwater review, and that the applicant is agreeing to a full review by the engineering department of final plans, and that will include stormwater calculation review with the town engineer, correct?
regardless of our decision or dependent on our decision.
Correct. Well, so again, this is a comprehensive permit application under Chapter 40B. So the applicant is technically only required to submit preliminary plans. However, that preliminary plan submittal quite frequently includes a review of stormwater calculations.
I mean, I've
You
looked kind
required
of
it
quickly,
for 50
there's
Hunt
no
Road.
mention of stormwater at all
Requiring
on
it for
the plan I see.
7 Gorham. So it certainly wouldn't be an unusual thing to request a review of stormwater calculations at this stage. I think, my guess is probably at the last hearing, Evan was talking about maybe not doing that level of detail because it's a much smaller project with much less stormwater impact than you would if you're having much more disturbance in a larger project. But at some point, at some time, there will need to be a review. It's really a question of timing. And I think, I guess what was discussed was that it wasn't necessary at this stage, but it would be a condition of approval, that a review of the stormwater calculations occur, with the submittal of final plans.
I wouldn't have any problem at all. I mean, that was my understanding also, is that would be a condition, that the stormwater management would be consistent with the town's recommendation that would go before the town engineer. And obviously, if it didn't calculate correctly, then we'd have to go a different route.
So what that means is that, at the end of the process, before the applicant is allowed to get a building permit, they're required to submit final plans for review, and this board has to sign off, that those final plans are consistent with what had been previously submitted in the decision and the conditions that are imposed therein. So the applicant is not going to be able to get a building permit to do anything on the site until those plans have been signed off by the engineering department and this board, that they comply with the stormwater management policy.
They certainly have a good amount of impermeable area now. It really is, it's large.
But is there enough driveway for the cars to get to the rear parking lot while staying on the property?
Let the turns like
Yeah,
too
it
sharp.
looks like you have to go onto the next property over to make it into the rear of this property with the way the parking spots are.
There's an easement.
Which attachment is that?
They blow it up.
There was an easement,
Is that
there was,
shown?
there was an easement
Top one?
since day one. The first initiated plan that was provided is there's an easement on Dalton Road going into the property.
No, the entrance to Dalton Road, I think Steve's question is where you see there's a bit of a grass island surrounding the new spots,
Okay.
and that distance between the grass island and the property line looks agreeably very tight. I don't know,
Well, again,
mention right there, I don't know what that is, but,
that's the property line,
no, I understand
I
what that
believe,
is. I don't
yeah.
understand the dimension between the two,
right?
what that space is.
Well, and again, the board asked me to somehow provide 2 parking spaces, and it's a good point that you bring out. I certainly didn't notice it until tonight when you pointed it out. But if we got rid of 1 parking space,
You'd have room.
then there'd be plenty of room for those 2 to get in and out. And again, the whole area is paved currently that's next to the existing garage.
I think the fire department's gonna need a pretty, what's their width? You have a
This was already
20-foot
approved by the fire
driveway.
department. The previous,
Previous plan.
the previous plan, but even this plan, the pavement hasn't changed whatsoever. The fire department can easily access this property. And if it couldn't, there'd be a letter today with their concerns, and there hasn't been any letter or any documentation from the fire department. I did speak,
Steve's right.
I spoke with the captain about this property.
The additional spaces as well?
Not the additional spaces the way it was before. The bottom line is with the additional spaces would actually add additional pavement, which would provide,
But if a car is there, a vehicle can't pass. You have a width in the driveway of 20 feet.
Right.
again, the last time I was here, I'm not too sure which board member pointed out, but that was the area to try and add some more parking, and that's what I attempted to
Yeah.
do.
Well, I don't think you can do that at sacrificing the ability for a fire truck to enter the property. I mean, I see what you've drawn, I just don't think it works.
And again, this is a plan that was submitted to the town, and obviously it would have to go before the other departments, and there hasn't been any objection to it.
Has this plan been reviewed by the fire department?
Yeah, there should be a letter in there.
For
This
plan?
updated, the
For
updated
this new
plan?
plan since
Colleen?
November 18th, or?
Updated plan?
Yeah,
So-
I sent it off to them.
Brian, is the concern simply that there isn't enough area in the existing, well, the lot that, without crossing over the lot line?
Yes.
There's a
But-
driveway easement.
Mr. Harvey owns the other lot anyhow, doesn't he?
Yeah, see the easement?
Today?
So he can
Yeah.
provide an easement.
Right, I'm not saying it's not solvable, I don't know what to do that it's not.
That's the only thing that would need to be done, is that there would be an easement provided to allow for that turning movement to occur.
But it seems like if he added 2 spaces, you wouldn't need it.
Okay?
You know what I mean?
But
So
yes.
we only asked for 2. So what, the question I think that Steve originated was, if we just had 2 there, we'd be able to get rid of that issue and not have an easement there? and
Well,
have that
I
design.
personally would rather have an easement because, again, we do need more of a width in order for the cars to go in and out. Emergency vehicles such as an ambulance or a fire truck. For me, as owner of the property next door, it'd be very simple to provide an easement. Have it on the plan, so the rights and responsibilities of both parties. Again, I have no intention of selling the property, but who knows, down the road, there's
To the
gonna be,
extent you can have
there'll
another
be an
property,
easement.
That's good, too.
Yeah, no, I
But
think
to
the
the
idea
extent
on
you
the
can have
spot is
an
good, it
additional
just,
parking
Steve is
spot,
right,
it's
it just doesn't appear to really work as shown. That doesn't mean it can't be tweaked, and certainly an easement would be a good solution for that. It would make everything just fine. I mean, he has, from the edge of the, I don't know, I think that was the existing driveway, which looks at the beginning of the parking space, he has 27 feet. The driveway coming in, he has 20 feet, which is more probably adequate for a large piece of equipment like a fire engine. So he's gonna have to come within 7 feet of his existing garage to accommodate that, but that's fine, right? Does that change the setbacks on that as far as an easement, or is that a different application of that?
I mean, this is a comprehensive permit application, so setback waivers are granted as part of the process.
Even on a property that's not part of
Well,
this
he's
application?
not putting any new structures on the other property, so he's got no setback concerns.
It's there, and that's the way it is, and granting an easement onto that property.
And he's not
doesn't-
changing a lot line either, he's just granting an easement. There's no zoning implication to granting an easement over your property.
Okay, yeah.
It just,
We don't have a setback requirement to a parking area in the zoning bylaw.
So in your opinion, we can move ahead with this application and just require,
the easement.
Yeah, I mean, I would
A plan that-
request that the applicant submit a plan that shows that easement area. And then the decision would require, have a condition that requires that an easement actually be granted.
so that would have to be done before the permit is issued. We
Before
can
the
move ahead
building
with that
permit is issued.
requirement.
You don't need the easement to be granted before the comprehensive permit is issued. You just need to
But
see
before
the
the
plan
building
as to
permit.
where it would be,
Okay.
to make sure that, you're referencing it properly in your condition.
And I have no issue with regards to having that as a condition to provide the easement on the plan.
Okay.
That's
Further
my-
questions
that's
from the
my
board?
issue.
I'm going to, I don't think we closed the public hearing. Going to open this up again for comments from the audience, either in favor or against this project.
Hi, my name is Rick Weber, 2 Marshall Street. I guess first question I have about the easement is that attached to the North Road property forever?
Yes, it'd be a permanent easement.
Okay, permanent
It would have to
easement,
be.
okay, all right. Second comment I have is, I have some concerns as far as the applicant's ability to manage his properties. Specifically the exterior appearances of it and blending in with the general neighborhood. Are you aware of what recent changes to 61 Carlisle Street?
This is not this application.
Are we aware of which, sir?
Changes to the applicant's, one of the applicant's other properties, 61 Carlisle Street?
We will be hearing
That's a separate.
61 Carlisle Street. I'm not sure, can you just tell us what you're talking about?
Sure. There's a couple things that really cropped up as far as really questioning, is he able to maintain his properties? Is he able to really complete his projects on his property? Is he able to support the financial burden of his properties?
Okay, I'm gonna let Mr. Haverty answer to the developer's qualifications. As it comes to mass housing, is that who would define that?
Mass Housing actually has the exclusive jurisdiction to determine whether or not the applicant has the financial capacity to do this sort of a project. They make that determination when they issue their project eligibility letter, and it creates an irrebuttable presumption in favor of their determination. So this is not an issue over which the board has any purview.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna take mass housing's word for it. He is a,
And Mass Housing will
Candidate.
also take a second look after the hearing is completed. If a permit is issued, they still need to go to Mass Housing for final approval. And they will again take a look at the financial viability of the project and the applicant.
And if the applicant is not able to maintain his other properties, he's still able to build new properties if he has other properties that are poorly maintained?
I'm not
I'm
sure.
just saying, I'm just asking, is he able to build projects that are half completed and keep on doing this with whatever 40B permits he has?
I'm not sure, what the discussion is with regard to projects being half completed. However, they're not gonna get occupancy permits for this project unless it's been completed pursuant to the decision that's been issued.
So he's allowed to have half completed projects across town that are unoccupied?
I think what you're asking, the projects
Yeah.
are looked
That's
at
up to us.
separately.
That's-
Each project, okay.
I mean, I
Each project
believe
is
this is
looked
an
at-
economic endeavor for him to build half a project and not have it occupied is fatal, honestly. You just cannot maintain that. There's no logical reason to do that. I don't know of a property that he has half completed. I am aware of some properties that could use some work, but I think more cosmetic than problematic. They're occupied, they have occupancy permits, I don't know what exactly you mean.
May I approach quick?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, he started painting 61 Carlisle, really in a fashion that it raises a really bunch of questions I have as far as his ability to manage the project. It starts out with, he painted it on November 21st, which was a very cold and very windy day. Do you want me to go back to the microphone, or?
Sure.
We can't do anything about this anyway, right? It's the mass health.
I'm not sure where you're going with it. If
Okay.
he painted on November 21st and it's not done yet, I get that. I got stuff at my house that isn't done either. I mean,
Okay,
you know,
all right, I mean, it's just
we're
a
talking
question of.
2 weeks or something? It's, 3 weeks.
Well, 2 weeks in winter. It kind of raises, is he experienced enough to know when to paint and when not to paint? That is half
That is
completed.
definitely beyond our purview here.
Yeah,
Okay.
whether
I'm
he's
sorry,
good at it or
we're
not,
not-
we can't.
If Mass Housing says that he is economically viable and is of a character that allows him to build this, we don't have any,
And how is the character?
Actually, this is a LIP, right, so it's DHCD in this instance, not Mass Housing. But he still will be required to get final approval.
Somebody that's not us. So
we don't
can't.
review finances, we don't, approve them or not. When they come to us, I guess either through Mass Housing or DHC, we're gonna take their word for it. They're doing their diligence for us.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Sarah DePoyen at 79 Dalton Road.
I'm Steve DePoint, 79 Dalton Road.
I reviewed the plan just before coming tonight, and I'd like to bring up the trash bin where it's located right on the boundary of our neighbor. And actually, she's the one that brought it up, but couldn't be here tonight. If there was another place to locate that.
Is that something you consider, Mr. Harvey?
Where the dumpster is placed.
They can continue. I'll address it if they have any other concerns.
Right, so I'm on the receiving end of the water. There's a
I think that you had
concern.
mentioned that before, and I
Right,
was,
from 75 North Road, so it doesn't, whatever the system is, it doesn't take care of it, and it spills over into right through my driveway. So I talked to you first of all, and you said that you gotta take that up with the town engineer. So I have been working with the town engineer, and to this day, I mean, I was there Tuesday afternoon asking about the plans and where the water's gonna go, and she said, I haven't received the revised plans yet, I can't make a decision. And that's all there is, and I don't know if these are the revised plans. I don't know at all.
I'm a little confused by that as well.
I don't know.
Mr. Harvey believes there's some
So
engineering there. I
she
haven't
can't
seen
sign
it.
off on it.
But a building permit won't get issued until they do.
Okay.
So we're gonna say at this stage in it, this is acceptable or not. He'll still have the onus to go ahead and do that. He has to get engineering to say this plan is acceptable. I think by law, no water is allowed to leave your property without treatment, and that's, I don't know if I'm speaking correctly there, Paul. but-
So the project's gonna be required to comply with the stormwater management policy for DEP. There'll be presuming that there is a decision approving this project, there will be a specific condition requiring that compliance and requiring review by the town engineer prior to the issuance of any building permits, to certify that the plans do comply. So whatever is constructed will have to meet DEP stormwater management policy, which states that you cannot increase the rate of the runoff onto, or off the property, onto abutting properties.
We're waiting for next decision.
The other thing is just a housekeeping. When I was looking through this to begin with, it says the project proposes to construct a new building on a vacant lot that will contain 5 one-bedroom rental units, of which 2 will be affordable. Now, back in the spring, that's how it started out, but then it changed, and I would like this to be correct, because I went through all the
change was
forms.
actually asked by the town because there's such a need for 2-bedroom homes.
Right, and I understand that, but I thought that was happened, and you open it up, and there are handwritten adjustments on the floor plans. But I had to open up all the plans again to figure out whether this had changed back again. So I just think for housekeeping reasons, it would be a lot easier if this stated what was really happening.
It will before the building permit is issued.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, it's preliminary, if you will.
Okay, all right.
We basically say that in this space, you're going to be able to build X, and then it becomes his responsibility to make sure it happens, and the town has the fail-safe of the building inspector, the engineering department, conservation, which may or may not apply in this case.
Yeah, no,
It's a bit of a process, I
I
realize.
understand, but it's just adding an extra paragraph or line, so that when you read it, you know what you're looking at. But, again, it's not important to you, so it's okay. All right, thank you.
What is she looking to be put in there?
That it was changed from 1 bedroom to 2 bedrooms. She wants that, and all those changes will be the end result in the decision of exactly what you're approving.
So to clarify, the number of bedrooms that are allowed will be specified in the decision. Right.
The actual plan stuff can be developed after the decision.
Correct.
You really don't have
Even if
necessarily a
even if
way
the
to
plans
go.
showing the exact number of bedrooms aren't submitted until post-permit, Because there, again, in addition to the engineering plans, part of the final plans will have to be the final architectural plans. And they'll have to show all of the layouts. And there will be a condition that requires X number of bedrooms. And the submittal of the final architectural plans will have to comply with that condition.
And
So,
of
so
course-
it will be set out in writing, what the requirement is.
And of course, the as-bills are required.
Right.
Right.
Once it's
It'll be
constructed.
as-built. Does that clear things up for you a little?
Yes.
Is there other questions or comment this evening from the audience?
Address the dumpster.
Yeah.
Oh, correct,
Can you address
correct.
that?
Would you like to address that, Mr. Arden?
It's been over a month, well, it's been several months since I submitted this plan, and the next door neighbor has never talked to me with regards to any issues about the property, so if there was an issue about the dumpster, I would have expected them to talk to me. I walk by the house all the time. However, with regards to the dumpster, one issue that's relatively new in the town is that there's a new town bylaw which states that the private owners of, I believe it's 5 or more,
Foreclosed.
or 4 or more private apartment buildings need to do their own private pickup now. So I have the exact same type of enclosure that at 75 North Road. Per the Board of Health, it has to be enclosed with a door, and obviously I provide the containers. I've never had a problem with my neighbor across the street. They never complained about it. Trash is empty. There's no concerns about trash whatsoever. So if there's any concerns in the future, again, I can alleviate that with my neighbors. But that right there was the appropriate space to put it, and again, I haven't heard any complaints at all about that.
I do have it as a note from last meeting, that did get brought up, that and that
And the-
runoff water.
Mr.
So I think
Ortiz
all
was
they're
at the
asking, so
last
if you're
meeting.
saying you can't do anything about it. is that
I'm
what
not
you're
saying that.
Oh, okay.
Rest assured, if I can do something about it, it's no major modification to the plan. It's something, if they talk to me, we could talk about it. Again, they're just containers. They can be moved to the side of the building and enclosed. I don't have an issue with that. But to come back with a new plan showing a different location,
Right, if
I
I
really don't wanna do that.
You could
Was
just
there
press
any
it through a condition.
suggestion of where they could go?
I could, if they wanted to talk to me, I could talk to my
Yeah, I
neighbor.
mean-
That's no big deal at all.
Because otherwise, he's gonna be chasing it around to figure out where to put it.
It is getting to be pretty full.
Well, again, to keep talking about the project across the street, there was a set of plans that were presented to the town that didn't show a lot of things that are on, what's on the property now, with regards to landscaping, a whole bunch of additional things. To keep the attraction away from the building, same thing with the parking. And again, with this building, I wasn't happy about the parking on the side, but we need the parking. I think I heard a response, you can see it from the street. That's my concern too. I don't want to see any parking from the street. But there's going to be extensive landscaping with regards to this property, just like I did across the street. I'm a local resident. I live next door, and all the properties I have in the town, I do my best to keep up. And again, I think that it'll be a very nice building. And I'll do the best I can with regards to landscaping.
Okay. Does the board have any further questions regarding this application? No further questions from the audience or comments? Seeing none, I think we can move to close the public hearing. I am going to read into the record a letter from Chelmsford Fire Prevention dated December 7th, today, regarding 73 Dalton Road, the ZBA. Dear members of the board, the office has reviewed the proposed project at 73 Dalton Road and finds the following. The water supply appears to be adequate. The required pressure and flow shall be confirmed by a current water flow test performed proximate to the site, with all calculations submitted to this department for review and approval. Hydrant locations as shown in this plan are adequate. Hydrants and fire protection equipment shall be free from landscaping obstructions. Access for firefighting apparatus and emergency vehicles shown in the plan is adequate. All fire lanes shall be marked with approved pavement markings and/or approved signage. Fire apparatus access shall be designed by a registered engineer to withstand the weight of their fire apparatus. Snow storage shall not obstruct or impede fire access roads or turnaround. All exits shall have sidewalks to allow a continuous path from the exit leading to a public way. The dumpster plan shown on this is adequate. An automatic sprinkler system conforming to NFPA 13R and a fire alarm system conforming to NFPA 72 shall be required. Both systems shall be monitored by a UL-approved central station monitoring service. All components and fire protection systems must comply with the state building code and the Chelmsford Fire Department requirements. 3 sets of sprinkler and fire alarm plans along with supporting documentation must be submitted to the Fire Prevention Office for review prior to the approval of building plans. All equipment related to fire safety shall be located at the discretion of the Chelmsford Fire Department. The applicant must sign an application to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for address and unit numbering through its coordinator, Town Clerk Tricia Juez. The office would approve of this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter part of their approval process. Captain Dan. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
By Steve, second.
Second.
Nancy, all in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
So that,
I don't think you're voting in this because
He's
you
not
haven't
allowed to,
heard, he's not
because he
voting.
wasn't a member of the board when the hearing process started. So that puts the board on a 40-day clock to actually get the decision prepared, deliberated, and issued. So you're aware of that. So you're gonna want probably to have this on the January 4th agenda for review, and I'll work on the draft decision.
Okay.
And we need the plan with the easement.
We don't really have a list for Mr. Harvey that's required then, but we would like to see if you could relocate the dumpster, and if you could make the parking and driveway work. I realize the fire department said that they are approving it. I have to imagine that part of that is an oversight, or maybe I'm misunderstanding something. But if you could have your engineer look at the access and make sure it's acceptable for fire safety. We will leave the 3, which I would much prefer, up in the air and stick with a requirement of 2 if that becomes a necessity, for the fire would override the last parking spot. But I certainly think it would be in everyone's best interest to have that extra spot there. I think it's, there's just really no other place I can imagine you could park if you come there and all the spots are full. They're just not, Dalton Road doesn't lend itself to parking, nor does North.
Well, we said he's gonna have a plan with an easement shown, right? That was the,
Well, that's gonna have to be a post-permit plan, because you've closed the public hearing, so no more information can be submitted now. So instead, what there's going to be is a condition requiring the submittal of that plan as part of the final approval submittal.
okay.
So we can't get building permits until there's plans that show, full detail building plans, and plans that will show whatever other issues such as a relocation of the dumpster. So we'll have a condition that requires that, and that'll be reviewed prior to building permits issuing. The easement plan issue will be reviewed prior to building permits issuing. The parking, will be reviewed, we'll put it in there. The fire department shall have, another review on the parking. We'll have the condition that requires review by the town engineer for the stormwater. I've got all that written down.
May I just interject with regards to the dumpster location? It's not a dumpster, it's gonna be, again, trash bins. So I have a plan.
Trash receptacles.
I have a plan that's before you, that's been reviewed by the fire department. Okay, it's on paper, shows specifically where it's going to be. We have someone that come here tonight that doesn't like where it is, but yet the person that supposedly doesn't like where it is, we have no information where they want it to be. So that just leads
I think we
me,
could assume further from their property would be ideal.
well, again, one thing that you need to remember too is there's a 6-foot stockade fence out there. And there are hemlocks that I planted years ago. So again, it's not gonna be a detraction at all whatsoever from their property. There's a fence out there. It's a
But
6-foot
if they don't
fence.
worry about the odor in the summer and such.
There's no odor.
Really? It's not even there yet. I mean, I can appreciate garbage smells, sir, and
Oh.
summer is a tough time.
Again,
I would hope that you could relocate that a little farther, maybe closer to your property, if there's no smell.
or maybe closer to your property too, right?
Well, I would be concerned if that was my property, yes.
I will move it further to the right where the handicap spot is. If that's acceptable, it's bringing it down. I just want to have an
So-
idea.
Let's not go down this road, because the board has closed the hearing, so we should not be taking any
Just have to
more
work it out.
information. The condition will require it to be relocated, and for that to be reviewed by the board prior to building permits issuing.
Very
So
good.
you can have that discussion at the appropriate time.
Okay.
And that's what we'll do.
So we need a motion to continue? at this
Motion to
point?
Well, no,
continue?
you're not, you've closed the public hearing, so now you're just gonna set up a deliberation session for January 4th, I presume.
Yeah.
Like a deliberation session
Oh, shit.
for January
It's a little
4th.
different process for the comp permit.
Is that a motion for a deliberation?
I think we need a
Yeah.
motion to continue for a deliberation session.
Let's not
Well, no,
continue.
it's a motion to have a deliberation session.
I'd like to make a motion to have a deliberation session on the 73 Dalton Road comprehensive permit application at the next meeting on January 4th,
2018.
2018.
Second.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
Second.
If he has a second, she beat him. All in favor?
Two down.
Going down like, lazy ducks.
Take 5 minutes, Brian?
Yes, sir, was that?
Six
I said, can we take 5 minutes?
Yes, sir.
6 minutes.
Take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start with 7 Gorham Street and 1 Pine Avenue.
little things, you know, but 73.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna start slowly until Mr. Lowe comes back. 7 Gorham Street and 1 Pine View Ave.
Go a little bit faster, we would be
Good evening.
faster.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Attorney Melissa Robbins. I'm from the law firm of DeShane and Farrell. We're here tonight for a continuation of a 40B hearing for a 52-unit project at 7 Gorham Street. At the last meeting, the board had tasked us with a couple things. I do know that we did get a couple pieces of correspondence, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you want to handle those at the beginning or at the end.
We could take them now. I think that would be okay.
There's 2 letters in your packet, one from Christina from the engineering department and the other from the fire department. Mr. Chair, you're going to read them into record now, or?
Oh, they're not in there.
They're not in there?
No, that's just the original application.
And then I have 2 file copies.
No.
No. That's a continuance. We have letters for 16.
This is this one is continued until, no, but this one's not for tonight.
It's continued.
January.
Okay. I didn't know it was a list, baby. So I do have 2 letters. And they're very long, so I'll look forward to reading them. This one is from the Chelmsford Fire Prevention, December 4th, 2017, to the Chelmsford Zoning Board of Appeals regarding 7 Gorham Street and 1 Pineview Ave, Pineview Apartments, project revision. Dear members of the board, water supply appears to be adequate. The calculations I've submitted indicates there is adequate water on site for both fire protection and domestic purposes. Conceptual hydrant locations shown on this plan are adequate. The Chelmsford Fire Department requires a hydrant within 60 feet of each fire department connection, and an additional hydrant within 500 feet for manual firefighting operations. Hydrants and fire protection equipment shall be free from landscaping obstructions. Access for firefighting apparatus and emergency vehicles shown in the plans is adequate. All fire lanes shall be marked with approved pavement markings and/or approved signage. The developer shall add fire lane pavement markings and signage at the Gorham Street entrance of the complex to ensure that responding fire apparatus can access the site from both directions of travel and they are not impeded by parked vehicles. Fire access roads and turnarounds shall be designed with swept path analysis using the ASSH TOBUS 45 turning template and be designed by a registered engineer to withstand the weight of the fire apparatus. Snow storage shall not obstruct or impede fire access road. The proposed access gate at the Pineview Ave end of the project is acceptable. The developer shall install a knock locks keyed to the Chelmsford Fire Department standards. An automatic sprinkler system conforming to NFPA 13 or 13R as applicable is required for each building. A fire alarm system conforming to NFPA 72 shall be required to monitor the sprinkler systems. Both the fire alarm systems and the sprinkler systems shall be monitored by a UL-approved central station monitoring service. And all components and fire protection systems must comply with state building code and the Chelmsford Fire Department requirements. 3 sets of sprinkler and fire alarm plans along with supporting documentation must be submitted to the Fire Prevention Office for review prior to the approval of a building plans. All equipment related to fire safety shall be located at the discretion of the Chelmsford Fire Department. The applicant must submit an application to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for address and the unit numbering through its coordinator, Town Clerk Patricia Druez. The office would approve of this plan with these conditions and changes. I ask the board to make this letter part of their approval process. Captain Dan. The second letter is from the Department of Public Works. Gary Persichetti, CFM Director. It is actually put together by Christina Papadopoulos. December 7th, 2017. Zoning Board of Appeals. Subject 7 Gorham Street, Pineview Apartments, 40B development of 52 residential units. Dear members, This office has reviewed the submitted plans by H-Star Engineering consisting of 13 sheets dated July 5th, 2017, revised through December 7th, 2017. Pre- and post drainage plans, 11 architectural plans dated June 20th, 2017, and a site and drainage analysis for Pineview Apartments report dated July 14th, 2017, revised through December 7th, 2017, and a traffic impact statement prepared by MDM Transportation Consultants dated June 22nd, 2017, for the above referenced site. The engineering division is still waiting to receive legal documentation which gives the applicant the right to install utilities in the paper street. The applicant has addressed all other technical review comments from this office. The proposed drainage design has sufficiently met all the requirements outlined in the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook. This office requests that the items in the letter to the board prepared August 7th, 2017 become conditions of approval as they are basic requirements of the Chelmsford DPW Engineering Division. If you have any questions, please contact this office. Sincerely, Christina Papadopoulos, Town Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I can start backwards if you want to start with Christina's letter. We have previously agreed to all of the conditions in her August 7th letter and have made all revisions since then as well, and would agree to any outstanding conditions in her correspondence as conditions of approval. Also indicated at the end of her letter, she was still waiting for information regarding the color of title issue along Pineview Avenue. We did review all the title and probate information for that paper street, and it was forwarded on to Mr. Haverty, and I'll let Mr. Haverty speak to that point.
So, Mr. Chairman, I did actually review the letter that was submitted from the applicant's counsel, and I agree with their conclusions, which state that essentially, because they own property that is located on a plan that abuts away, and they're shown as abutting that way, their deed references that they abut that way, that they have rights to pass and repass over that way, and then pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 187, Section 5, they have the right to install utilities within that way. And again, this is not a full title review. I did not do a full title review of this either. The board is not being asked to make a determination with any definitive nature regarding rights to title. You don't have any jurisdiction over that issue. The only thing the applicant needs to show is that they have a color of title, which is that they have shown, that they have a reasonable basis for claiming that they have a right to do what they're doing. So they have met that color of title standard.
Okay, thank you.
And above that, Mr. Chair, we had previously agreed, even though we have rights within that paper street, we've agreed to disturb only the areas necessary to install the utilities and bring the area to then previous condition as soon as construction is completed, and try to limit the amount of construction within that way as possible to limit the disturbance to the neighborhood and the abutters along Pineview Avenue and the paper street itself.
Right.
Then I think that was all of the comments in Christina's letter. We've addressed all the outstanding stormwater and other technical issues. As to the fire department's letter, I should have warned the board that there was a spoiler alert in that letter, in that we have installed, proposed a gate now along Pineview Avenue. I think that we've heard the abutters' concerns, we've heard the board's comments regarding access along Pineview Avenue, and although we thought that the traffic would be limited in that area, we understand the neighbors' concerns about having the cars run through there, and that they have a quiet, dead-end street that they're trying to maintain their neighborhood characteristics, and we appreciate that. So we're proposing a gate, a locked gate, not a lifting gate, but an actual locked gate along Pineview Avenue. And if you'd like, I'll let Dan Mills from MDM speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Daniel Mills, a Principal Traffic Engineer with MDM Transportation Consultants. At our prior hearing, I did discuss the findings of our traffic study. We did provide a comparison relative to a complex across the street. There was some question to the magnitude of our numbers, even though they were based on a standard that's an industry standard, the ITE trip generation. volumes, basically saying that there's about 23 trips during the morning peak hour and about 27 trips during the PM peak hour for the 52-unit development. And while we're very comfortable with those numbers, some of the members either in the audience or the board weren't very comfortable. So we did sample the complex across the street on the other side of Gorham Street, 1524 Gorham Street, just over the Lowell line. That development has 26 units, so similar residential style development. We did a count at that driveway during the morning peak hour. There's about 12 vehicles coming out of that 26-unit development, and about 18 during the evening peak hour. So just extrapolating that, double the size of this project, we have about 24 trips in the morning peak hour and 36 in the evening peak hour. So they're comparable, if not almost exact. So from that perspective, our numbers, we're just trying to justify them a little bit more for the board's and the public's comfort. In recognizing that there will be some travel to and from Pineview Avenue. Really nothing significant. If you're at a bus stop, you'd probably see 1, 2, maybe 3 cars in a 10-minute period if you're waiting in the morning. But understanding and respecting the neighbors in that area, there is the applicant is willing to provide a gate between Pineview Avenue and the site. Similar to this style gate, this is a sort of a residential environment. We put this in front of the fire preemption office. They were comfortable with this style of gate so long as the padlock on there was compatible with their master key, which it will be. So that's, if there's any other questions regarding traffic, that's...
Are you going to, and this looks as though you may, allow pedestrian and bicycle traffic through there? Is that going to be an option?
I believe there'll be room for the pass on either side of the post. So right.
Okay.
And on the site plan, you'll notice that because it's being dead-ended, there are some turnaround areas for either delivery vehicles or mail trucks or U-Haul trucks or things of that nature, because it's becoming a dead-end area for them to turn around. So that's been in
And the fire department is familiar with the gate as well?
Exactly, yes. We did meet with the fire prevention office, and we did have some correspondence with them, and as you know, as was read into the record, they were comfortable with the gate.
Was that gate already in, or is it's going to be?
No, it will be part of the development plan. At the end of construction, there'll be a gate across that road.
What is the AM and PM peak traffic hour? Is that like 8 to 9? What is that defined?
Yep, so we look at some 7 to 9 in the morning, and the typical commuter time periods, and then 4 to 6 in the evening. And within those 2 hours is 1 hour that the traffic actually peaks. So at that time, it could be fall anywhere between 4 and 6 usually. But at that time, we would expect about 25, 30 trips, both combined in and out. So it wouldn't be 30 in and 30 out. It would be combined. Total would be 30.
If you drop someone off and left, you would be 2 trips?
Exactly, correct, yep. The flow is generally, most people leave the complex in the morning going to work or errands, and then they'll be returning in the evening from their job or a restaurant or store.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to be clear, all that traffic is now completely through 7 Gorham. So nothing through Pineview Avenue whatsoever.
I have one question about that. During the construction phase.
Yes.
How will you, I know you've got to get over there to do your utilities and so forth, but as far as trucks coming through Pineview in order to do the construction, I can't remember if you addressed that.
No, we will have limited vehicles going through there for construction on that end, but we did agree that prior to commencement of construction on the site, they would have a pre-construction meeting to talk about deliveries in time for construction and the way that would be handled.
Right,
to
just
limit.
for the traffic coming
Exactly.
through that neighborhood would not be.
Right.
If you could try to have the construction vehicles enter from Gorham, that would be best.
Yes, we agree too. And I think to the limit that we can during our construction phasing and during our pre-construction conference with the building inspector, that will be reviewed, as well as truck traffic, because we will have to have details and other issues out there dealt with during pre-construction as well.
There was mention of a turnaround being put in the plans.
When you actually, Now this, and there's now a T
right
turnaround,
there,
I'm gonna
yeah.
step off the mic, but if you can see at the end here, yeah, there's a little T turnaround.
Okay.
It's not to fire ASHTO standards because obviously the fire trucks can have
Just
access through
unlock the gate and go through.
Exactly, but the UPS truck or a FedEx truck or something of that size can turn around there and come right back through.
Okay.
So that, or a vehicle, obviously, any of these vehicles can come down and turn around and come back through. And the fire department has already had the benefit of reviewing that plan. That's reflective of their letter. No more other questions regarding the traffic. The other outstanding comment that the board had was related to landscaping, and unfortunately at the last meeting, Lorraine Black wasn't available to review the landscape plans. Mr. Hamill did a pretty good job of being our landscape architect that evening, but the board had some questions regarding conflicts with snow removal and also what we were going to use that open space, what type of field would be out there in that little grassy knoll area that the board appreciated on our sidewalk. So I'll turn this over to Lorraine Black so she can go through that with you.
Sorry.
Like, I didn't change that. Good evening, Lorraine Black, landscape architect. I'm pleased to be here this evening to present the landscape plan tonight. As you see in the, okay. As you see in the plan, it's a variety of different trees and shrubs. The main,
Sorry, to put it to
expanding
full
it
screen
to,
mode,
yeah,
yeah.
that'd be great. It's the bottom right.
Well, so- yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
there we go. Thank you. It's better. Coming in from Gorham, there are shade trees, a mixture of shade trees and flowering trees on either side. Each of the units has a tree in the front. There are also a variety of flowering shrubs and some evergreens along the front for each unit. I have shifted the plantings out of the area for snow storage, so it is reflective of the engineering plan, so those have all been shifted. As you see on the southern end at the bottom of the page, that's a combination of evergreens, spruce and juniper red cedars, and some shade trees as a screen towards 495 and along the wetlands. And also just calling attention to, oops, is that the turning off one?
I warned you.
That wasn't the,
the technology fail that I had the first time I used this clicker.
so that's not the pointer, okay.
This is-
Sorry.
Familiar with the clicker.
Sorry,
The learning curve.
yes. Can I just be on?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Do you want me to go to the next page?
So, no, so right in through here is the pocket park that we spoke about. And so what I've done for that design is that we have a small fence around it so that it gives a sense of enclosure. There's a gate that would be accessed for the residents of the apartments. I've located some shade trees throughout there as well. That'll just also supplement what the existing trees will evaluate the existing trees on site to make sure, what should we keep, what should we, take out if they're in bad condition. Just to note, we have located 3 benches along the west side, and that really kind of gives a sense of, they're off to the side so people can sort of sit back, they can watch activities within the pocket park. Behind them is a hedge of Rose of Sharons. They're all white flowering Rose of Sharons, so that, in the summer months that would be really lovely because they'll be in bloom. And I've also located one picnic table off to the side. We can site locate that once it's constructed. But the fact that we've got some opening in through here, that gives sort of, informal open space for, people to play and do kind of semi-passive recreation through here. Again, just to reiterate, there are some larger shrubs in between the units back here, just again to give sort of a sense of privacy and separation for the back of the property, so they have a little bit of privacy between, each of the units. The next page is just this back end. Again, the same, we've still got the plantings along the southern border, along the wetlands. Again, continuous, having the specimen trees in front of each of the units and some of the shrubs. And the same thing on this border. It's a combination of evergreens and shade trees. The turnarounds that Melissa had mentioned are, you can see them probably better in this plan. And any questions?
Where is the entrance to the park playground area? Like you mentioned a gate or a?
Yes, so there's a
Between two
walkway
buildings,
between
or in
these two
between,
units, a
yeah.
walkway that comes back through. So where these little shrubs are right through here, there's a small gate here. And I know it's hard to see, I'm sorry, at this level, but the fence line comes through, follows up, and comes around. So that would be where the access gate would be.
Okay, now, is there an overlay of where the snow removal areas are for reference with the walkways / plantings? Because that looks like it would be, without a walkway there, it looks like a place that would be nice to
Yeah,
store snow.
it would, and the walkway is off-centered here, so there's quite a distance back in through here where they could do for snow removal. So that would just be a maintenance issue to make sure that that's cleared through, if it's a desire to have the pathway plowed during the winter, so that they can get into the park. But the other areas that were open, if I remember correctly, it was at the entrance on both sides. You can see here, there's also back in through here, this location here, and then there were right along the front. So all the plantings have been pulled out,
Okay.
those areas. Oh, and then the plants. Sorry. So this is a photo array of all the plantings. I don't know if you saw this last time or not, but again, it shows you a mixture. They're seasonal plants, so that we've got things that bloom in the spring as well as in the summer, interesting in the winter, and that we have red-twig dogwoods and we have some evergreens. Certainly the birch trees with the white bark is beautiful in the winter. The sycamores have that peely bark. So again, thinking about the plant materials that would be selected here. So there's just something interesting throughout the year. It's not just a big, in late April, early May, sort of a ride of color and then nothing the rest of the year. So tried to do a nice mix. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I just want to point out in that front area where the board had seen that open area that was pretty well maintained, that's when you walk to the house along 7 Gorham to the right-hand side, there was that grassy knoll area. That's really the area that we're using for the park. It's already a beautiful little area. And there's a beautiful tree that's right in the center that we will,
You can maintain.
that
some of
we're
those.
going to maintain as part of the center of the park. So I think it'll be beautiful.
Was that a walnut, do you remember? Was that the tree you're trying to save? Was that a walnut?
It might be. I'll have to check and see, especially if it's black walnut, because then I'll have to be careful with what we've got around it.
Yeah, for sure.
So if the board has no other questions regarding the landscaping, the only other item I wanted to bring up for the board this evening was we did have our initial meeting with Conservation Commission on Tuesday evening. We had some DEP comments, which we've already addressed. The overall presentation to the Conservation Commission was great. We're actually removing a lot of impervious. There's about 600 square feet of impervious area within the 50 to 30 feet to the wetlands now, and we're going to 54 within that area as proposed.
And the wetlands, is it on 495?
It's the
Basically,
drainage
the
swale
drainage swale?
location.
It's a created wetland as well.
That's correct. It was created with the development of 495. The commission did voice their disapproval of us having anything in that 30 to 50, even though there's previously disturbed area. Right now, we're 48.6 feet away, and there is some slight adjustments. As you know, the buildings are staggered, so we do have a little leeway there to pull some of the buildings up and out of the 50. So we did agree with we are going to agree with the commission to move the buildings out of that 50-foot zone. So you'll actually see that waiver be withdrawn from your waiver list, and we will comply with the Chelmsford wetland regulations regarding no structures in the 30 to 50. So overall, an improvement to that resource area and a better protection to the resource area as we'll have full stormwater controls now protective of the resource area and be completely without of the 30 to 50. And we have a site visit with them on the 16th if anybody on the board would like to attend, and hopefully there'll be no snow on the ground. I think.
Are you going to submit a revised waiver list before we close
Yes.
the hearing?
Yes, and I think depending on how many outstanding comments the board has for this evening, that's something I have to discuss at the end of the night as well. But yes, that's usually my intention. I have a preliminary waiver list, and then as we go through this process, the plan has changed, so the waiver list will also change. So I'll resubmit it to the board for their review.
Thank you.
We're happy to answer any other questions the board may have.
Are there any questions at this time from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. What happened to the playground? Were you gonna do another playground up the road, and what happened there?
We've agreed to donate $8,000 to the Playground Mitigation Fund, which will actually help install that playground down the street. That was suggested by engineering, as it was one of the areas they were looking to develop. So it actually worked out as a neighborhood amenity that our development can use and the other neighborhood can use as well. And that's why we revised the area on the plan to be more of a passive recreation area, because there'll be a neighborhood playground.
I like that.
Yes, and we're agreeing to that $8,000 mitigation as part of the condition of this permit.
That is a good thing.
As part of our proposal, I guess it wouldn't be a condition. We've amended our proposal to include that $8,000 gift to the town of Chelmsford for playground purposes.
It'll be a condition too.
Yes.
Mr. Haverty will make it a condition if it's not. I'll open this up to the audience again to see if anyone has any comments or concerns regarding this application.
Hello, my name is Karen Barrows, 1521 Gorham Street in Lowell. I am a direct abutter to the play area, apparently, the passive area. I was not here for the first meeting, unfortunately, did not get the notice until after the fact, so did not attend the first one. So I have some questions that probably were answered the first time.
Feel free.
One of my biggest concerns is actually the difference in naming of this complex. I see apartments on one document, I see condominiums on another document. What I would like to find out is exactly, are they all considered affordable housing units? Are some of them going to be considered condominiums in which they would be purchased by somebody, or are they all going to be rental units?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that. Yes, the LLC, in a misnomer, is named Pineview Condominiums LLC. Part of the application had Pineview Condominiums LLC, but they're 100% apartments. There's 52 rental units, 4 one-bedroom, 12 three-bedroom, and the remainder are 2-bedroom. And 13 of the total overall units will be rented to those families earning 80% or less of the area median income. And the rest of them will be market rate units.
So 13%, you said?
13, which is 25%.
Okay.
Yes.
25%, all right. I guess one of my biggest concerns, considering that this is a direct abutter to a very unique single-family neighborhood. All the homes are individually owned. And so now we're putting a very large, very significant complex directly abutting to it. There's no separation other than some trees and shrubs, which are very pretty, but there is no separation. I will look out my window, all my neighbors will look out their windows, and they will see very large, very significant rows of townhouses. They are rented, they're going to be rented, and that brings upon it a concern for and I'm sure you've talked about this, the town of Chelmsford has to deal then with the police presence or utility presence and fire presence and all of those kind of things. I'm sure you've discussed all of that. But I'm looking at this as a neighborhood, a very unique neighborhood that is now being changed by a very large, very dense complex. And I don't understand why 52 units, why it looks like every unit possible has been packed into this land. And I don't understand why, what's the purpose of that, and what's the benefit of putting so many units on such a property, especially when it's right up against a single-family neighborhood. And why was this even decided? This was okay.
I certainly understand your concerns. This is a 40B, which I'll explain to you
yeah.
if you're not familiar with it. The applicant has the right to come before us with a plan with what he decided was an economically viable 52 units to build this. We're very limited on our ability to deny this.
Okay.
Actually, technically, we could, but from experience, we learned it doesn't do any good to deny it. And by taking it in this fashion and having the meeting, we try to gain as much control of as the project as possible. I think this is certainly going to happen, as it is a 40B,
Right.
and that the town has the obligation to reach its mandate of 10% affordable housing, which we are on our way to. And frankly, this proposal will help because we will gain, for accounting purposes, all 52 units.
Okay.
Because they are rentals. So it's favorable to the town to do that in order to get to our goal, to have some control over the open space we have left. If we don't reach our 10% or continue on the path to that, then we don't have control over the 40Bs at all.
Right. I was under the impression that there are other properties being developed toward this quota.
There are.
And so it has a feeling that, oh, we're going to get a lot off of this property. I feel we're somewhat of a scapegoat in the feeling of it, that, we can now get all 52 properties. I know across the street, as they mentioned, there is a smaller unit, and if you actually look at that unit, it is massive. It's actually a very massive unit, and so for this to be now twice the size of it, I'm quite concerned about the impact that it's going to have on just the feel of the neighborhood will drastically change. There'll be no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think
There's
that
just
is-
no
that
way
is
you
a
can beat
reality.
butting this.
Have you seen the plans as it's
Yes, I have.
laid out?
Yeah,
Just
I
so
came here and
I
looked
know
at
you
the
missed the
plans.
other meeting, and it seems to be somewhat, you won't be able to see the whole thing. It's kind of carefully laid out.
It is spread out. I do appreciate the layout of it. I do appreciate the landscaping attention and those kind of things. But just knowing that there is this very massive, I think I would have felt so much better if part of this had been just simply condominiums, true purchased units, in which people had then ownership of the property and felt obligated to take care of it.
Yeah, I do believe that this is a substantial investment for the owner, and it will be so much in his benefit to keep it nice. He is going to see higher rates, he's going to see higher rents, and it's a significant investment. It
is, it's a huge development.
Yeah, it's
rather imposing,
I believe they'll
actually.
maintain it. I know that's easy to say, but it's in their best interest to do that. They are investing a good amount in the landscaping, the design, and how it's going to function. So I think they're going to want a place that people are going to want to live at. And the market rate units, I think, will have the effect that you're hoping with a condominium, that people will be willing to invest, that being the owners, in the property. But it is hypothetical, and we didn't,
Right.
we
It
want
is.
to have a great project there. We're very limited as to how to not only stop it, but, conform it to, it would be nice just to have single-family homes, but that's not the application in front of us, and this is his right.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your
Actually,
comments.
I do have one question. On the landscaping in the passive park area, you had indicated a fence. How tall would that fence be?
I have it noted as being 4 feet.
4 feet. Okay.
And I think is that an open fence? It wouldn't be enclosed, like
Yeah,
a
It
stockade.
would just be, right, it's not a stockade,
It's more of a decor.
Black, yeah.
Okay, all right, something of that nature. Because that was another thought of mine, understanding a 40B, understanding the magnitude and the expense to put this project together. If there were any way of having some kind of delineation between the neighborhood and this project, more than just landscaping, but maybe more of a true fence that would at least be on the Chelmsford property, the Chelmsford Lowell, that line.
Let's talk on that a little, Melissa, while we're here.
Sure, Mr. Chair. There is a perimeter fence that almost runs the entirety of the property line, even along that property line.
Well, right now, there's a fence. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
Okay, so that's just a simple chain link fence.
that's correct.
So I'm looking at something that's a little more occlusive, as opposed to, I can clearly see through a chain link fence and onto the property.
No, if you look for something a little more solid than that,
Correct.
it'd be your
Right.
wish.
To give some delineation. If we have no control over this is a property that needs to go in, that is
Frankly, this is
accepted.
something we can help you with.
Right,
It sounds
but
like
then
a
can
good
we have a
idea that
compromise
there
here,
is
that we have
separation there.
some visual separation between the true neighborhood and this complex?
Okay, we make them aware of that, and hopefully they will find a way to accommodate you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Michelle Auger, and I live on Bernice Avenue, which is very close to the complex. It's kind of in my backyard. And I have a comment and a question. First of all, I want to thank the board for bringing up the concerns about the construction equipment driving through our quiet neighborhood. And I can see on the documents that were attached to your agenda that there are certain hours of construction that run up until 8 o'clock at night. That's a long time from 8 in the morning till 8 at night to be hearing big trucks moving throughout this neighborhood. So I would really hope that the developers consider the families that are living there in these single-family homes and the small children that are in those homes and playing in those yards and having these huge, massive trucks roaming through the community for a 12-hour period every day. It's a big concern.
In the documents, it was from 7 till 8 PM, did you say?
I thought I saw that.
The hours of construction, I believe, are 7 to 5, and I think that's generally what is in the, as a condition of this board as well, is 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. I can't remember the weekend hours off the top of my head.
It may be my eyesight, but I swore I saw 8. But
Well, we can condition it to 7 to 5 if Melissa feels that's the right,
But, still, and that's great, and I would prefer that, but I am still, hoping that the construction equipment and the tractor trailers and all these things are gonna carry all those materials into that construction zone are not gonna pass through our neighborhood.
I think we can condition that too, and say that there will be work outside of that gated, are you familiar with the gate and where that's gonna go?
Yes, I am.
So there is work outside of that, and I think that certainly they're allowed to do that, and we can specify that if traffic is gonna come in and out of the site, it should go through the Gorham Street exit. And that, as need be, they can certainly do the work they have to do outside of the area in the paper road. I think they're well aware of the concerns of the homeowners on the paper road, the gentleman that has maintained it for many years.
Yes.
And hopefully they have spoken as to what will occur, and I think they're earnest in trying to mitigate as little damage as possible. They'll get in and they'll get out, and they'll put it back the way it is now.
And I do appreciate the fact that they have been very accommodating to our concerns.
I think they want to be good neighbors. I know this is, like you said, a big space to come into your little area. We definitely feel a lack of control of how to stop that. And that being the case, we're just going to try to make it so it's as painless as possible.
So then comes my question. What happens if, in 3 to 5 years, the complex is sold, and the new owner decides they don't want a gate there? What control do we have over such a situation in our neighborhood?
It'll be a condition of any permit that allows them to operate the site. It's something they could not take off of the property without coming back to this board and getting an approval for it.
Okay, even if it's something down the road that's no longer a 40B? Or is it always gonna be a
This'll
40B?
always
It's
be a
going to be a 40B for
Okay.
as long as it doesn't comply with the underlying zoning, which will be forever.
Okay, so once that gate's up, it's up to stay?
Yes,
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you very much.
thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just on the construction questions, I'd just like to point out again that something that we've not had in Chelmsford, especially in the 40B, is that these are modular, proposed to be modular units. So hopefully that'll limit some of the construction concerns.
Oh, these are planned to be modular.
Yes. So I think so a lot.
Thank you.
So a lot of those will, a lot of these issues I think will be taken care of in the pre-construction conference. I mean, obviously we'll need to use that entrance.
The
to
on-site
some
work will
extent,
be limited
but-
comparably.
Right, but we're going to try to limit as much use as possible of that entrance and use the 7 Gorham Street to the extent possible.
So the condition that we imposed on Hunt Road, and I presume we would have the exact same condition with regard to hours of operation for this project, said construction activity shall be conducted between the hours of 7 AM and 6 PM, Monday through Friday. Work may occur on Saturdays, but shall be limited to inside work only, after the buildings have been framed, roofed, and sheathed.
Saturday would only be after the framing is
And it would
complete.
be inside work only. So outside construction is Monday through Friday, 7 to 6.
And then Saturday, once there's a roof on, they can work inside the structure.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any hours on Saturday?
This is inside work.
Yeah, just trucks and so forth.
I like the way that works.
We can talk about that when we get to the conditions.
Are there any other comments this evening?
I have a question. Okay, my name is Fang. I live in 39 Pineville. I have a question. When your paper street, I've been taking care a long time. When you use it, you have to put it back the way it's now. But only thing I want, I have to sign your paper with my lawyer. When your day just start and your day just done, have to be exactly. You can be delayed anything. And second thing, I had to want my contractor to do all sprinkler system and landscaping. I don't want your builder do it because something happen later and my contractor sprinkler system company, they complain on something else. I have to
You
pay.
sprinkled the paper road.
Yeah,
Put
right.
sprinklers in.
I do have sprinkle the whole area on my paper road. Sprinkler system and landscaping I pay every year. That's why I don't want them to do it. I want they pay for my company to do it. So that's why later on, nothing happen, they not blame on me. That's what I want. But my lawyer, I have to sign a paper. Everything, your day they start and your day they complete. I don't want you delay 1-2 years. Have to be exactly. If they late, you have to wait 5 because my property, they damage. You have to pay for damage. That's what I want.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's an issue that's outside of the purview of this board. Certainly the applicant and the speaker can get together and try to figure out the best way to handle that issue.
Okay. So if you talk with.
Yeah, my lawyer talked to,
Have
I
your
didn't talk to
lawyer
her
call
later,
my
yeah. That's what I want, yeah. Because I had to speak in front of the board. That's why later, anything happen, I can say nothing because 2 lawyers talking.
Nothing worse.
Hey.
That was a low blow.
Sounds expensive.
John, would you like to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Souza, 88 Carlisle Street. I was at the earlier meeting on this project and the hearing, and one of the questions that came up was concerning the playground. And I do appreciate the applicant making a donation towards the town playground. It's my understanding that was suggested by the engineer's office. My only concern with this is where this project is located. It's on the opposite side of Gorham Street. So the nearest town park to this project in East Chelmsford is next to an old former school at 60 Carlisle Street. So if families are living in this complex, the children would have to cross Gorham Street, Route 3A, which is a state highway. Cars are moving at least at 45 miles per hour, if not more, from what I read in the traffic report, and either walk up River Neck Road and take a left on Carlisle, or walk up Oak Knoll Avenue and go on to Carlisle. Both River Neck Road in that area and Carlisle Street do not have any sidewalks. Carlisle Street is it's a very older, narrow road. There's no, so it's without the sidewalk. So I just think I would definitely recommend, I just can't see how children would get from Severn Gorham up to the park, Harmony Park, unless their parents drove them. That would be the only safe way that it would happen. So I'd just my recommendation would be that the board take a look, and even if it's some type of scaled down playground, I think there has to be something on site, because I don't think it's safe for the children that are going to live in this complex to be able to walk to the town playground unless they're driven.
Okay, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Wouldn't they be able to go out through the Pine Street?
No, they have to go over 495 to get there.
Yeah, you would have to cross 495 regardless. I mean, that's not,
Yeah, you have to go up the front entrance, take a right.
Yeah.
There's no sidewalk there.
Yeah. Because at some point, they're going to have to cross Gorham. I mean, they could go down, but there's where Carlisle is in relation in this park. You'd have to walk up to the park, and you would have to cross Gorham Street to get there.
yeah, no, I have seen the park, I just,
Go there. all the way.
bit of a hike too, huh?
It's a hike and, yeah, I live on the other side on Columbus Ave and I drive my kids up to Harmony Park. 'Cause
Yeah.
You can't walk there.
I just want to make sure donation is appreciated, but I just want to make sure the board understands it's a very difficult area to access, and there are not a lot of sidewalks, if any, in East Chelmsford. Thank you.
Right.
Hi, Anita Tanini, 8 Columbus Ave. I'm also town meeting rep for Precinct 4, and I live on Columbus Ave, which is the other side of the highway. I've gotten 14 calls the last couple of weeks about this project. In light of what's our school committee meeting on Tuesday, my concern, and I know it's a done deal, and I get all of that, but I was looking at kind of the numbers, if even, there are 52 units, if half of them had children, 2 children, average 2.5, so say 2 children, they go into our school system, it will cost us to educate these kids $650,000. The tax revenue, and I don't know what the value of this property is, but say per million, we get about $20,000. We could be, anywhere up to 15 million is $300,000. So the delta for us as a town would be $350,000. If they built 5 houses, single-family homes, and we have the River Neck Road development, those were 500, I think they were selling price of 550. When you do the math, the delta between, and say all of them, all those 5 houses had all kids, right? Say 100% went, only 50% on the apartment buildings. The delta or the impact to the town would be about $81,000. And, in light of all the issues we've been having, to me, we have to start looking at that. I get that we're gonna hit our numbers, but
Yeah, we have talked about this a little, I think I'll let Charlie.
Anita, I bring up that same thing, and who shuts me down is this guy over here. His name's Paul.
I get that, but I
He will tell you the law.
So it's not an issue that this board has any authority to either deny or condition a comprehensive permit based upon. It's also an issue that can get a board in a town into significant trouble if you go down that road, because it becomes a fair housing question. Basically, someone can then raise the claim that this town is trying to prevent housing for families. So,
But you can make one of them and hit the 20% of the development if you did a five house and put one of them is 20%.
but
The 40B.
the board does not get the opportunity to make the determination as to what the proposal is that comes in front of them. The board is only allowed to make a decision on the proposal that they've been
Okay,
given.
like I said, I know this is a done deal, but
It's a difficult spot, and
I just want
But
people
Anita,
like-
I would point out,
Taxes,
the Affordable Housing Plan Committee several years ago actually retained an expert in municipal finance to actually take a look at the fiscal impact of the existing 40B developments in the town. And perhaps somewhat counterintuitively, the single-family housing developments were the one that had the negative impacts, and the larger rental developments such as what's the one on 110 there?
Kensington.
Kensington actually had a positive fiscal impact.
Yeah, I like to look at the assumptions that they put into that.
Well, you could,
personally,
it
but-
wasn't assumptions, it was actual data, because they were already up and running.
Yeah.
It was surprising.
And in terms
They
of
know how
kids
many
in the
kids,
school
they know
system.
how
So
much
that is something that, is a record somewhere
Yeah.
in town hall that you can take a look at that and.
And then also, another thing that came out with a lot of the residents in this part of town is we feel that it is a scapegoat for the town, meaning it's easy to put it over here because it abuts Lowell, it's kind of isolated. I'm just telling you what they've told me, and it's valid, right? Because not many people will complain, because it's not in the middle of Chelmsford, and no one cares about us, and, again,
It's in
I've
the
been getting
master
the phone
plan.
calls.
We are definitely just receiving these in. We didn't have, we don't have any thing where we can say this is a good, the town has a master plan, and I
This
believe
was in
this
the plan.
property was
I know.
listed as a suitable
Not by us.
affordable
Yeah,
housing.
no, and I've been vocal about
Right.
my displeasure of this
I
development
don't
this
think
large.
anybody's out to get East Chelmsford,
Yeah.
though. I don't, Mill Road got a very large project. Kensington is on 110.
Hunt.
Turnpike is looking at one Hunt Road.
Yeah.
They're
Brick Hill.
not necessarily distributed evenly, but they are throughout the town.
No, again, I've been getting a lot of phone calls, and this is
Oh, I
the
appreciate
feeling
that,
from
yeah.
the neighborhoods and the East Chelmsford part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Christensen, 66 Carlisle Street. Again, with the traffic situation, I'm sorry, who did the study on that? Was there actually a company that did the study on the traffic?
Yes, ma'am. He's here this evening.
Okay. And so you're only looking at the units across the street to get an assumption of how much this will impact traffic during rush hour?
If I may, Mr. Chair, a full traffic study was completed. The presentation that was made this evening, there was a question regarding traffic in this general area and whether there was a typical that we could look at, and actually the association, the condominium across the street is exactly half the size. So it actually made a good case study to do actual trip generation. But we do have MDM here this evening, but that's what they were speaking specifically to this evening. There was a complete traffic study done for the entire.
Okay, and for the complete traffic study, what was the finding?
Regarding, you
Regarding
can
how
address
it-
the board if you wouldn't
I'm
mind.
sorry, regarding how much this does impact, I mean, there's, we're talking possibly 104 cars with 52 units, assuming that each unit has 2 parking spaces. Not the small unit across the street, but just slightly down from that. I believe there was 180 houses between single-family and duplexes going in. That's probably at least 360 vehicles, and again, right there. A mile and a quarter in the opposite direction, there's 178 apartment buildings being built right now. You double the, 2 cars per each one, that's 356. We're talking over 800 vehicles in the matter of like
800
a mile and a
trips?
half
Oh,
of
everything
increased
combined.
vehicles right now. So, this is concerning. It's going to impact rush hour traffic.
You're certainly in an area experiencing a lot of growth.
We
if I'm-
are.
I-
A lot
I'm
of
sympathetic. I
40B,
sit
a
in
lot of
traffic and
40B in
curse
East
every day.
Chelmsford. It may be across town, but we have, 6 40B right now between Riverneck and Carlisle and,
Larger than that.
Yeah.
at least six proposed units. Some
From
have
my
been
understanding,
proposed, some haven't.
MDM's work here, they have safety-based sightline criteria that are met. It's a modest traffic generator, less than 30 trips per hour. The site drive will operate well below capacity of a level of service, and the pedestrian connections are to Gorham Street. That's the information that the traffic study has provided. You are in an area that's experiencing a lot of growth. I don't know how to control that especially when you enter Lowell. We have, absolutely nothing to do there. I think our goals are clear to accommodate the state and reach our 10% affordable housing goal, and then have control over the rest of our open space in town and be able to maintain that level, because we're close. I think within the next year, we should accomplish that goal, and with that, we can gain control again. We can say no to any 40B.
How many acres is this again, for these 52
I can
units?
ask Bert if he knows.
3.5.
3.5. Didn't we have a 3 acre that we only put 11 units on River Neck Road, bad curve, cemetery across from it?
Yeah, that was a
And we
cluster
downsized
zoning.
even
It
that.
wasn't a 40B per se, it was cluster zoning.
Enos project was open space.
It was
cluster
open space.
development. An open space cluster development.
Right, I mean, very different than this, but that is what they applied to do, that was their decision. The developer, they bring what they.
Well, you actually reduced the units even there. They had wanted more than 11. I'm not talking about McKennedy's, which is 14 houses on 11 acres with
Oh.
wetlands. I'm talking just down the street from there. All of these are within a quarter of a mile of each other.
Farther down River Neck, the one that's under construction now.
Right, I think
Yeah,
it's
that went over
11, it ended
several
up 11 units. They wanted more than that, but you reduced it. But that's on approximately 3.5 acres. So I'm sorry, what is the difference between, 11 units to all of a sudden 52?
The wetlands are really the difference. They weren't allowed to build in the wetlands. This project has said at this point, they were 48.6 feet from the wetlands, and they needed to be 50, and they're gonna relocate the buildings so they comply with that 50. The River Neck Road area, not only was it a wetland area, but I think it was a wildlife habitat area. So there's a lot of strength to that. There's a lot, you can make a fair argument that you cannot put it where wildlife habitat areas are. That limited the actual scope of the building. This project, and they will be out of the 50-foot buffer, is not as sensitive, if that's fair to say.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments this evening from the audience? Seeing none?
Can I make a motion to continue this to our January 4th meeting?
You could.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, before we do that, I think we've got to a point where I know that Mr. Haverty had raised it, but we do need to go through a set of revised waivers for the board to review, and I'd also like to start taking this opportunity to start going through the conditions that have already been raised and start going through the minutes of this board and putting together conditions with the board's permission with Mr. Haverty and your town planner prior to the next meeting, if the board would allow that.
I don't think we're on course for that. Will this remain open at this point, or?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, and I have,
Particularly since we're waiting for the revised waiver list.
Right.
So that can't be submitted if the hearing's closed.
I see.
right, and it was brought to my attention that we're close to the 180-day period or somewhere right around there. So I have, and I'm of record, will grant the board an extension of time to the end of January 31st, 2018, and I do have it in writing here for the board this evening as well. So there'll be no concern that the board will hit any statutory deadlines in the time that we're working towards conditions, yes.
And I'm comfortable that we should be prepared to close the hearing on the 4th.
Otherwise, we should do it till the 2nd of February.
So should we amend the motion, or does our motion still stand as
To
is?
continue to.
Motion to continue is fine.
Continue to
Okay.
January.
Second by Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, well, that was, so the 4th, we're gonna have Parker Road, Tingsboro Road, Carlisle Street, and Gorham Street.
Gorham Street, and you're gonna have about 4 new applications.
How many?
4 or 5 new applications. I Oh, thank you. My deadline for that is Monday.
Are they variances or are they no 40Bs?
No, no, just regular business.
Before new 40Bs.
I gotta get a raise.
By the way, after this, it's 65 units. That's for 10%.
And that's brick hill?
I'm assuming, yeah. I thought they were up over 200. That's what I thought, yeah, but we need 65 to hit 10%.
And that would be Turnpike, correct?
No,
No, that includes Turnpike.
Oh, that's including
after
Turnpike.
this one.
Oh, after this one. Turnpike hasn't applied.
And this one.
After Turnpike and this one was 65 short.
Actually, I don't know if that number includes.
Turnpike hasn't applied yet. I don't know why we're making the
Right.
assumption there.
Turnpike is
I think
planning
it's
board.
65.
Happy holidays,
I still
Melissa.
think it's
very much.
Bye, Melissa.
Are you Turnpike? Are you with them?
Yeah, I think after that, the decision should be entered what?
It was Thursday morning.
Also, let me back.
Thursday morning, yes.
Morning.
So the decision was entered on Thursday morning to the town
Yes.
clerk.
It does. So if you're last.
But I'm trying to figure out if that was
I
inclusive
don't, it
of.
wasn't inclusive,
bite
no, I think
after now.
Evan had said after Turnpike, there were still 60 some odd units left to hit the 10%.
And that included this one.
It included this one. Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
number I
we're
can
closer
put
than
up.
that. That's too bad.
So, for January 4th, we have Drum Hill.
Amen.
Yep.
This, we're gonna do a site walk and see on.
Yeah,
Oh, Glen Ave will be there too.
You don't need me anymore, right?
No, thank you.
No,
You're
please stay,
excused.
please stay.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Like
relieved.
25 questions for you, Paul.
Dalton Road is coming back on.
Good night.
Right. There's,
Have a good holiday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
this
that's,
should be pretty quick.
that's 1, 2,
Basically
3 already.
is continued until.
We gotta stop taking
Four,
the application. All there is to it.
Did we have,
Right. Do we
I
have
don't
any
know, you can put those 4 on. We have 7
Drum
right
Hill
now.
did
I
Glen
know,
Ave?
I know.
You're just gonna have to either do that or January's not a bad
Walk around and see
month.
that
Are you
thing.
going away for January?
Next one
I hate wealthy farmers.
everything
I don't have to walk.
You're still on mic, remember? You guys wanna
So,
adjourn?
we should probably have a second, yeah, I think we could set the
This is
calendar.
minutes.
I'm suggesting a second meeting in January if we can get a consensus. We have 7 for the 4th,
Yeah, the entire thing's on the floor.
and she has 4 that are potentially
At
coming
least
ahead.
4 more.
My only problem is it have to be later in the month, because I think I'm gonna be gone for a couple of weeks in the middle.
Well, if we can do this week, I mean,
I think it would help.
we can't have 11 with 3 40Bs. We'll just,
No
we'll
way,
be
these
here
are
till
gonna be
midnight.
long.
So what are you
So,
trying to do?
you know,
Split
this is the meeting
40Bs
that
to
didn't happen.
one and the others?
Right, remember, I'd like to give
Oh,
you
yeah.
December off.
Exactly.
Who said that?
Never say that again.
It begin with a C, I think that's what
All right, so how about the 25th of January? That's a Thursday.
maybe, that would be better. for me.
Feasible? Yeah.
That would be good.
So, you're in, you're gonna be
I'm
here.
in. I'm in.
Okay.
Starting the 4th or besides the 4th?
No.
And the 4th. So
And
we'll
the
have-
fourth.
We just have too much, and this is usually really unusual for the winter, so. You're okay with the 25th as a timeline?
So another
Steve?
Thursday?
Yep.
Okay, we need 5, so.
Most of them are ones I can't vote on anyway, though, right?
Well, the 4 that will probably go for the 25th would be something you could.
They're new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll be here.
yeah, this will clear up. Probably after the 4th, most of this will clear.
After
Maybe not
January,
actually
yeah.
Gorham Street, but it'll be prepared to have a decision.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
have to discuss a decision too on the 4th.
It's gonna be a long meeting, just with what you have.
Got a lot of work ahead of you, young lady.
Thank goodness for him writing decisions.
Yeah, that's what I'm following around now. At least he's writing them.
I'd like
Yeah.
to make a motion to close the meeting?
Well, I'd like you to make that too.
I will
All
second
in
that.
favor?
That one? That might be
Read on
volume.
You don't need a second on that.
That might be at the top.
Have it for discussion.
Oh, you don't need a second, you don't need to vote to close the meeting?
Correct, no. You open it to discussion and then you close. You don't need a second.
Was that a motion to
Robert's
adjourn?
rules.
Did I miss it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Friday, you gonna come Friday, tomorrow?
Merry Christmas. Friday's the party? I thought it was Wednesday.
No, Wednesday's the party. Tomorrow night,